Somewhere beyond the recesses of time and space, two podcasters are set adrift in a machine, picking up transmissions of movies that are forgotten but not gone.
Welcome to Movie Memory Machine, the only podcast about forgotten movies that might be cursed.
I think definitely. Why are we having any doubt about that still?
I am your host, Landen Solano, joined always by my co-host, Truman Caps. Truman, it's good to see you.
Landon, it's good to be here regulating funkiness with you. I feel like funkiness is too big of a thing to regulate on one's own, and I feel like as a team, we can do it together.
So when they were talking about going to Funky Town, they're talking about watching The Mexican from 2001.
Well, this is the thing. Funky Town was around in the 70s because it was properly regulated, but then after Alan Rickman got into the White House, he deregulated the funkiness, and things went out of control, which led to the fall of Funky Town. And
Okay. If you're keeping score, that's less than 1 minute, and we have 2 references to older episodes.
Again, we agreed that this is a cursed podcast, and there's nothing more cursed than us weaving our own tapestry of references that no new listeners can get through.
Truman.
Landon.
When you go to Mexico...
Oh, yes.
What kind of car does the rental place give you?
Man, they are constantly trying to foist Chryslers onto me. You know how rental car companies love to give you the nicest, most luxurious and comfortable car possible. Every time we have gone to Mexico, and my girlfriend and I go to Mexico with some frequency, we've never driven there. That seems pretty daring to me, because I feel driving in another country as it is driving in this country is frightening enough to me. Driving in another country where I don't speak the language is even more intimidating. If I had to choose a rental car to drive around Mexico, though, I don't know. I almost feel like rather than an El Camino, which Brad Pitt is so excited to drive in this movie, El Camino, I think let me explain. Brad Pitt makes up an improvised song about driving an El Camino in this movie.
Yes, he does.
Oh, does he ever? I guess I don't know. I guess I would probably actually want to drive a gigantic, completely stripped down semi-truck that is basically just a chassis and a motor and a cardboard-wrapped steering column, which is another vehicle that features prominently in this movie. Very, very car-heavy.
This movie is indelible in my memory, and the El Camino particularly. Like, when I get in my car sometimes, I sing the El Camino song.
You don't even drive an El Camino.
I know I don't. I know I don't. I've said walking to car, like my partner and I going to our cars at one time, like I know I've said El Camino.
Our perception of what a flavorful rental car is has been forever corrupted by this movie. I, too, having watched this movie a long time ago, have always just thought whenever we've been in Mexico, I've been looking out the window of our Uber being like, where's the El Caminos at? Come on. Where's it gonna happen? Gotta see an El Camino. Not only do I remember him driving the El Camino around from my childhood, but I even specifically remember the specific shade of blue and the kind of like the detailing accent painting on it. It's a beautiful El Camino that they have Brad Pitt drive in this car. In this movie.
I love and can't wait to get into it with you the local perception of Americans coming into their territory, and just like someone like it's like someone going to a restaurant in Mexico and saying, I would like some Mexican food, if you know what I mean. And be like, yes, and then bringing out a plate of nachos. Like, I bet this is what you meant, nachos. That's what you think all Mexicans are.
Hola, senor. I would like your finest Crunchwrap Supreme, por favor. and I'm joking around, but also I do usually find myself craving Crunchwrap Supremes in any country that I go to.
Well, okay, so we're talking obviously about The Mexican from 2001. Truman, can you tell us a little bit about the the twists and turns the story takes, can you encapsulate it into a synopsis for us?
I'll do my very best. Hapless but good-natured fuck-up Jerry Welbach, played by Brad Pitt, has spent the past 5 years working as an errand boy for an LA crime syndicate in order to pay off a debt to incarcerated kingpin Arnold Margulies. At Margulies' request, Jerry is sent to Mexico to retrieve a priceless antique handgun known as the Mexican, which has a cursed and tragic past. This last-minute business trip proves to be the last straw for Jerry's long-suffering girlfriend Samantha, played by Julia Roberts, who breaks up with him and takes off to start a new life in Las Vegas. In Mexico, Jerry acquires the Mexican, and almost immediately loses it when his car gets stolen with the gun inside. As Jerry bumbles his way through rural Mexico trying to recover the pistol, Margulies dispatches thoughtful hitman Leroy, played by James Gandolfini, to kidnap Samantha as collateral to ensure that Jerry doesn't steal the gun for himself. While Samantha and Leroy strike up an unexpected friendship on the road to Vegas, Jerry finds that he's not the only person looking for the fabled firearm.
Alliteration. You always win my heart with that.
Look. Oftentimes, I do a synopsis of a movie, and I think this movie does not deserve alliteration. If there has ever been a movie that deserves some rhetorical flourishes in describing its plot, it is The Mexican.
Just to reiterate, this film is written by J.H. Weinman, directed by Gore Verbinski, and stars Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, James Gandolfini, Bob Balaban, J.K. Simmons, David Krumholtz, and Gene Hackman, amongst many others.
It is a murderer's row of character actors in this movie.
This film was released on March 2nd, 2001. A very different world than we live in today.
Yes. The sort of world that could never foresee a market for techno-thrillers like The Recruit.
It was initially released into fill-in-the-blank theaters. Truman, do you want to guess?
A lot. A whole fucking lot of theaters.
Okay, I want to hear your thought process on this, because this feels like... I don't know. If I didn't have the number in front of me, I would struggle a bit, because it's an unconventional type of movie, but it stars two massive stars.
Which is why I say it's got to be a lot of theaters.
Okay.
I mean, this is Brad Pitt at the height of his pitness, to say nothing of Julia Roberts. I don't know, so I'm gonna say 2,800 theaters.
Not bad. It's 2951.
2951. This is the problem when we go this far into the past, where I am just bumping up against trying to guess, okay, how many theaters had been built? Yeah, I don't want to overshoot the theatrical capacity of the country.
Do you want to guess then what this ranked at in the box office? You probably already know.
This I know. I know that this opened at number 1, and
number 1.
I hooted and hollered when I saw that.
Apparently, the machine has stacked all of the number 1 box office movies at the last half of the season.
You know, this is a cruel and sadistic movie memory machine that puts all the number 4s at the front and allows us to get a lot of time on record formulating some bullshit theory about why coming out at number 4 makes you a forgotten film, and then that was just a coincidence.
Yeah, well, okay. I might have some more tricks up my sleeve here in just a second, but let's talk about what else was in the box office the weekend of March 2nd, 2001. 2001?
What accent is this?
I don't know why I pronounce it that way sometimes.
You know, it's your own version of doing the El Camino song. 2001, 2001, 2001.
As we said, this is the number 1 in the box office in its first week. In its second week, it's a sequel. Do you want to guess? Do you want to do guesses here? Are you done with guessing?
Is this The Mummy Returns?
Ooh, that's a damn good guess.
Thank you.
But no, it's not.
Not damn good enough, evidently.
It is Hannibal.
Ah, okay.
In its second week. Coming in at number 3, also in its first weekend, See Spot Run.
There's a dog that befuddles some criminals. Am I close?
Yes, you are. I think... Now, I didn't look this up. I should have looked this movie up, but what I'm confusing it with in my brain is the Dougie Doug starring movie That Darn Cat.
Yeah. I remember the trailer for That Darn Cat. There's a moment when a whole horde of cats jump onto the windshield of a car forcing the driver to veer off the road. That's all I know about that darn cat.
I got more. I could say more about it. I'm not going to. I'm going to move on to number 4 in the box office.
Wait, you could say more about that darn cat, or you could say more about C-Spot Run.
A little bit of both, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
Going to number 4 in its 3rd week, Chris Rock's Down to Earth.
He's an alien who comes to Earth. Yes? Am I
No.
close? No?
Nope. It's a remake of Stairway to Heaven. Not the TV show, the original movie, also known as A Matter of Life and Death. There's also a Michael, not a Michael Landon, Warren Beatty, Heaven Can Wait. It's a remake of that, where Chris Rock dies and becomes an angel and inhabits another body on Earth so that he can right some wrongs. I think I saw it in the theater. I haven't seen it since. I forgot about it.
Again, I don't know if these movies are forgotten or if these are just movies that were not targeted to me when I was a preteen, and then I've not come back around and seen them.
Well, this one might be number 5 in its 6th week, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh boy, saw that in theaters at the local art house cinema and fell asleep because it was the first movie with subtitles I had ever seen, and my little eyes got so tired, Landon, having to scroll back and forth reading all the subtitles. I am not proud of that moment.
Interesting. All right, well, let's finish this out. This film stayed in theaters for 13 weeks. Now, here's a little surprise for you, Truman. Do you remember our conversation during The Recruit?
I mean, I remember that I yelled so much in Al Pacino voice that I blew out the mics. Sure, I remember. What do you want to talk about, though?
This film stayed in the top 10 of the box office for 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
First week, number 1.
Yeah.
Second week,
2.
number 1.
Oh. Okay.
So,
okay.
just like The Recruit, it's number 1 for 2 weeks in a row. Drops to number 3, 5, and then 10. This film had a $40 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
Grossed domestically $66.8 million.
Okay. And
Internationally, 78.4 for a total of $148 million on a $40 million budget.
I am proud of our boy / girl. I'm proud of our movie, The Mexican, for having made a tidy little profit. There feels like some sense of justice to that.
It does in a weird way, and I shouldn't be saying that about two massively, huge stars. Like, they were going to be fine going in and coming out of this movie no matter what.
I'm not worried about, like, Brad Pitt being able to buy another house or buying a new El Camino, if you will. It's more just that a weird movie,
yes,
with huge stars in it, was able to turn a profit. I mean, and certainly I'm not worried about Gore Verbinski making money either. It's just I don't know. I'm just happy that this concept earned money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. So I guess we got. I think you've alluded to it already, but I want to immerse me into the Truman Camp's The Mexican Experience in March 2nd, 2001.
Okay. Not the Truman Camp's Mexican Experience of all of my recent trips to Mexico.
No, please. Spare us the slideshow.
It's just me with my nose pressed to the glass, searching for dogs carrying footballs around. This was yet another movie that we got from Netflix in a little red envelope in the early 2000s. Watched with my parents. I feel like this podcast has really just been a retrospective on movies I watched with my mom and dad from Netflix, and
we're covering a lot from this era, this like 3-year stretch of 2000 to 2003. So,
but unlike a lot of the other ones, I was shocked by how much of this movie I remembered. There is when we watched it, I liked this movie a lot. I've not watched it again since. But I really enjoyed it, and I committed so much of it to memory. You know, the look of the El Camino song, as a child, the scene where Brad Pitt finds the people who have stolen his car. He sees the car thief's car parked outside of a bar, and he revs up the truck he's driving and crashes it into their car and pretends to be knocked out over the steering wheel and uses that as a pretext to hold the guy at gunpoint. As a like, I don't know, what, 12-year-old, I just remember thinking like, wow, that's such a cool thing to do. And and now watching it, I'm like, holy shit, Brad Pitt, that is a ballsy maneuver. You are an idiot, but I'm glad that worked for you.
Is it more or less ballsy than riding your horse into a saloon and then jumping through the window to shoot everybody?
Listen, I would say that when Lightning Jack, well, he doesn't ride his horse into a saloon. He just like whispers in his horse's ear. No, it's ballsier. It's ballsier than that, because Lightning Jack is letting the horse do all of the dirty work for him. This is Brad Pitt in a car that is a total junker, no airbags or nothing, putting his entire life on the line and seemingly making the whole thing up as he goes. But so I mean, I remembered that very clearly. I remember I basically the first 2/3 of the movie I remembered quite clearly, and I enjoyed a whole lot, and I was eager to see how it would fare. My childhood memories versus my jaded adult perceptions of it, and I think it held up incredibly well, if not better. I think this is, by any objective measure, the best movie we've done, and also the first movie we've done that I outright would watch again and again and again, and I completely love. But I'm bigfooting your recollections, Landon. Tell me about your experience with the Mexican.
I saw this in the theater. This was okay. We talked about this a little bit on in the past, particularly when you really raked me over the coals about the movie Jerry, which came out somewhat close to this film.
Did you see Jerry in theaters too?
I did see Jerry in theaters.
What theater is showing Jerry?
The Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor.
Is this the okay? I mean, was it like was it a multiplex where there were like 8 different theaters showing Jerry to accommodate?
No, it's an art house theater.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. But okay. I was, this came out at a very special time because I was still in community college and had made the decision to, like, I did one semester where I was like, I'm going to go into psychology. Maybe I'll be a therapist. Maybe I'll just be into psychological research. I don't know. One semester in, I discovered theater and also discovered filmmaking and video production and the budding telecommunications department that was growing at that community college. And I said, I won't ever need to be in psychological studies. Let me just give everything up and go into filmmaking, and here we are podcasting today.
Let that be a warning to you folks. Acting, not even once. It's a gateway drug to podcasting, the worst fate that can befall a person.
Anyway, the point is, when this film came out, I was very much like, I had just gotten into, I want to be a filmmaker. Let me go see, as many movies as I can, different movies, and being first introduced to these kind of offbeat crime movies. I was probably seeing Goodfellas for the first time at this time. Some of the Tarantino movies.
Would we call Goodfellas offbeat? I would say it's fairly onbeat as crime movies go.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying like that. I'm getting introduced to like the foundations of it, but also so that I can appreciate off what goes off that beat.
Gotcha.
Because if you go into seeing the Mexican without having kind of a foundation of, the crime genre, or the oops, I'm unlucky genre, like, you're not going to appreciate it, I think, for what it is.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. This movie exists in the context of all that came before it. It did not just fall out of a coconut tree.
And dare I say, Snatch.
Oh, yeah. This movie, I think, is much better than Snatch, but much like Snatch, it is a movie where a lot of people have a very easy time getting a hold of guns in a country that actually has fairly strict gun control laws.
So that all that to say, like, I saw this in the theater, I loved it, owned this on DVD,
Rightfully
and
so.
remember, like you, so much of this, and which begs the question, like, we're kind of discovering new subgenres of our own show, where it's like there are the forgotten movies that no one remembers anything about. There are, the movies that no one knew really existed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the movies that you remember a lot of things about, but the general population doesn't remember the movie, or it's not, in common conversation. And then the inverse of that, which is everyone remembers the movie, but no one knows a detail about it.
Yeah. Would you say that everyone remembers this movie but doesn't know details about it?
No, I would say the people that know of this movie remember a lot about it, but it is not remembered by the general population.
Yeah, and I think
would be my guess. I mean, that's my taking of the temperature.
I think that's fair, and it's just interesting. I mean, I agree with you. It's just interesting that would be the case, looking at how much money this made, how widely released it was. I mean, seemingly lots of people saw this movie who A, didn't like it, and B, forgot about it. And so I guess it's just the people who liked this movie, it really got its claws in deep. Like, there's other movies I've seen that I liked that I have not remembered in as granular of detail as I did The Mexican.
So, okay, you are the resident review looker on this show. Did you look up any reviews for this?
Yes, I looked up a bunch of reviews for this, and I stopped reading them at some point, because a lot of them were making me angry.
Okay.
But okay.
Well, because what you just said kind of took me back a second. I'm like, oh, people don't like this movie?
Yeah.
And then I remembered, like, at this time, I had a international film studies class who was supposed to be taught by a pretty acclaimed teacher that had to drop out at the last second, and then suddenly my creative writing teacher took it over.
Oh, boy.
And I remember now, she hated this movie from shot one. Mm-hmm. She was like, I was thinking of walking out during the traffic light scene.
Okay, well, you have to be more specific. This is a traffic light heavy movie.
The opening traffic light shot. She's like, the symbolism of that is just so on the nose. I don't know. She hated it, and I now remembering the vitriol that people had for this movie.
Listen, I think that she is prejudiced against Studio City, California. The second she saw that traffic light is in Studio City, just past Laurel Canyon, up at Laurel Terrace, right by the, right by the Carney's hot dog shop. You all know what I'm talking about, don't you? Like, she's like, no, I'm done. David Anson in Newsweek kind of summed up, I think, a lot of the general critical consensus at the time. Critics were generally pretty up on James Gandolfini and Julia Roberts in this movie, which is, I mean, rightfully so. It's incredible. Their chemistry together is off the charts. He says, though, the rest of the movie is tedium. We don't care about the guns legend or the double crosses that befall Jerry, and the south of the border stereotypes reek of gringo condescension. Brad and Julia, of course, look great. Buy the poster, skip the movie.
Which I don't agree with that, though.
No.
I mean, the film is completely aware of the Mexican stereotypes and gives the Mexican characters agency and commentary about how stupid Americans are coming to their country with their, kind of touristy expectations.
Every scene with Brad Pitt interacting with Mexicans in this movie, the joke is on Brad Pitt being a moron and the Mexicans around him either being, look at this idiot, or being like, hey man, we're trying to help you out, but also you came here not speaking Spanish and knowing nothing about our country, so there's only so much we can do.
Right.
This movie, also, it depicts Mexico without using the piss filter that makes everything look all yellowy and third worldy. That's an achievement.
You're right, and this is right in the throat. I mean, granted, it is pre-traffic, or no, it is after traffic, but it's right in the throes of the Soderbergh filter system.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of the reviews were also pretty butthurt that this is a Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts movie where Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts are not together for most of the scenes in the movie, and Now, this is a thing that I've discovered in doing this podcast and reading reviews about the movies we cover. Roger Ebert, always right. He's constantly right on the money.
I disagree, but I thoroughly enjoy his writing. I respect the man terribly.
This is not a hot take at all that Roger Ebert was really good at film criticism. He gave this 3 out of 4 stars, but he said Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts are good in this, maybe better apart than if they were together. I don't see what purpose
I agree with that.
He says, I don't see what purpose it serves to complain that they don't have every scene together. He kind of goes on to elaborate that when they're together, they're arguing with each other a whole lot, and he said that would get stale throughout the movie, and it kind of allows them both a lot of room and allows the movie to go in a lot of new and more interesting directions by not just having it be another movie about a bickering couple.
And I would go so far as to say it plays into a major theme of this movie about character transformation and personal, identity transformation.
Yes.
They have to go apart from each other in order to grow and come back and appreciate one another for who they are, to decide whether or not they're going to stay together by the end of it.
Yeah. And also that so many of these reviews talk about Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts not being together on screen like it's some kind of mistake or critical oversight, but the movie very clearly is making the artistic choice to separate them. They are together in like the second scene of the movie in a wordless scene, and then the next time we see them after that, it's Brad Pitt at ground level and Julia Roberts yelling at him from a balcony, throwing shit at him, and then they're in different countries.
Unlike Money Monster, which I don't think it was an artistic choice. That was more of a choice by necessity.
Yes, it was more of a scheduling choice. Julia Roberts does not say Sacagawea one time in this movie.
Not a single time.
Well, and maybe that would help Brad Pitt get back on track and find the gun if he had just heard that name.
Is there a I don't know much about curses, but is there a single like Manchurian Candidate like code word you can say to undo the curse?
I mean, I feel if I was putting a curse on an artisan-produced handgun, I would simply not have a get-out-of-curse-free card on it. Although
I mean, it seems like if you're going to the length of putting a curse on something or someone, you don't want the antidote.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't know, it's not like there's some kind of regulatory body ensuring that there's a way to disable curses. I mean, they regulate funkiness, not curses for that reason.
I think how I want to, and again, this is just selfish for me to keep my brain straight so I don't get scrambled throughout this thing. Talk a little bit about all of the players, because there's a lot of like double crossing. There's a lot of who works for who and who's calling the shots. And maybe we'll reserve some of it when we get to talking about the twists, but I just want a general kind of layout, a chessboard of where everybody is.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with just kind of laying a few people out, and correct me if I'm wrong, or just give me your thoughts.
Yeah. Just set up the chessboard.
Okay. We've got Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts.
Yes.
They are a couple.
Yes.
On the verge of getting married.
Or they are on the verge of breaking up.
Or but they're right there. Like, they're going to do one or the other.
Yes.
They're like at the fulcrum.
Yes.
Brad Pitt is into, I almost don't want to call it organized crime, but he's in with criminals.
Yes.
He's in with criminals specifically under the thumb of Bob Balaban.
Yes.
Bob Balaban works for a character by the name of Margulies.
Yes. Margulies is the head of this criminal organization. He has been in prison for a few years. Bob Balaban is running the show while Margulies finishes out his sentence.
Okay. Then there is J.K. Simmons, who is also kind of a player on the level of Brad Pitt.
He's like Brad Pitt's co-worker. He is a fellow errand boy, kind of.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons, in this movie, be ready to be proud of me, everyone. J.K. Simmons, I believe, is wearing a wig in this film. It certainly appears to be one.
I mean, I don't have specific information in front of me. Truman, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I think this might be his real hair.
So not only am I wig blind, I'm now also real hair blind. I don't know what's down and what's up.
I can't. I would.
How can I?
At
how
the
can
risk
I,
of losing this gem of a moment, I would be willing to concede that it's not, like, that it could be a hairpiece, but I am pretty sure it's his real hair.
How can I be trusted to regulate funkiness if I can't even regulate hair? This is awful. Anyway, continue laying out the characters in the Mexican. I have to go do a deep think.
Okay, so we've got the kind of criminal side. Bob Balaban sends just Brad Pitt to Mexico. Now, he's doing that because this is, I think, where I want to start the conversation. He's doing that because Brad Pitt requires one more job in order to get him out. And the last job he did, he kind of fucked up. He wasn't able to get there because Julia Roberts hid the keys on him, right?
Yes. To clarify, the whole reason that Brad Pitt works for Margulies is he's basically sort of in debt to him. And we can explain the concept of why he's in debt, but basically Brad Pitt is not really willingly working for this organization.
No.
He fucked Margulies over inadvertently, and basically to keep from getting killed, he's been their errand boy for a few years. He thought he was free and clear. He fucked up the last job. Fucking up is kind of a thing that he does a lot, and so now he is sent on this, his official last job.
But the question is, does he fuck up, or is fate conspiring against him? So, like, where we start this is, like, he has to do this one last job because the last job that he was given, Julia Roberts didn't want him to do, and so hid the keys on him, and he wasn't able to get to where he needed to be in time to do the job.
Yeah.
And so now Bob Balaban's like, well, you're going to do this job or you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I guess I'm going to do this. And Julia Roberts is like, you're not going to do that or we're breaking up. And he's like, you're making me choose between breaking up or dying. I have to admit, early in this movie, the character they're giving, the, like, veracity they're giving Julia Roberts was a little like, oh, I hope this isn't going to be the whole movie.
There's early on, Julia Roberts is acting somewhat unreasonable, and I think it's to Julia Roberts' credit and the movie's credit that as the movie goes on, you really do come to empathize with her. I mean, you can look at this and be like, oh man, Brad Pitt's just a cool guy and his girlfriend's being a bitch, but you also
Which is probably what I did in 2001.
I mean, yes. And I think that you have to also just look at this as a situation where, like, probably dating Brad Pitt's character for 5 years, like, yes, in a vacuum, it seems like she's overreacting to this, but this seems like a guy who is constantly dropping the ball and screwing things up, and she's reacting to a long series of Brad Pitt issues.
Yeah. Okay, so basically it's like, if he goes to Mexico and retrieves this gun, his debt is erased.
Yes.
And if he doesn't, or if he fucks it up, he's dead.
Yes.
Sets the stakes really high right out the gate.
Exactly.
You gotta love that. Now, here's what I want to ask you and start with. Margulies is in prison.
Yes.
Okay. And it's revealed he's in prison because...
years ago, he was driving through Studio City on Ventura Boulevard. Brad Pitt's character ran a red light, crashed into Margulies' car, his trunk popped open, and he had a person tied up and gagged in the trunk of the car. This person, presumably he was going to kill him or dispose of him in some way, but instead the cops find this person, the person testifies against Margulies. Margulies goes to prison, and then Brad Pitt, who is kind of responsible for all of this happening, then is forced to become an errand boy to work off this debt.
Interesting. I mean, that's a movie in and of itself. Like, how do you not just go, I'm going to kill the guy who put me in jail? How do you get to the point of, like, I'm going to put him on a leash and he's going to work for us? Like, it takes a very specific kind of person to be able to do that to him.
Which is an interesting move, and it's the sort of thing that we could pick apart and poke logic holes in a different movie, but this movie, it somehow kind of fits the world and the vibe of this movie, and Margulies, when we finally meet him, seems like a kind of more... He's a deeper Kingpin than you would
He's a
typically
little more
see.
philosophical. Yeah.
He's kind of an Ed Burns type. He's got a little bit more going
God.
on than you might expect.
Oh, you had to go there. We were laughing about wig blindness.
You were
And
laughing.
you
were laughing. You were laughing at my expense.
Was Ed Burns wearing a wig?
Oh, God. Well, I don't know, Landon. You're asking the wrong person. What I like about the kind of criminal syndicate in this movie is that, a lot of it is sort of just left hazy. It's like, you know that it is some form of organized crime, but it's not like Goodfellas, stock character actors from The Sopranos. Well, there is an actor from The Sopranos in this, one of the big ones, but like, it's not like mobbed up stuff. It's the criminal syndicate operates out of like a warehouse, and there's a receptionist there who says like, Margulies Holdings, please hold. It's just like a holding company that seems to deal in antiquities and smuggling, and it's just kind of like a business that is clearly sort of shady.
Which honestly feels like it's probably closer to the truth. Like,
all
of those donut shops in LA, I'm like, there's gotta be just like an office back there with people, playing poker and waiting for their next, call to go out and do a hit.
Yeah, no, that smoke shop in my neighborhood where there's never anybody in it, like, they're not selling enough bongs and like overpriced Zippo lighters to actually pay their rent. Like, there's other shit running there.
There has to be, yeah.
But I like that, and that ties into just a broader overarching thing, is that this movie is not really worried about being cool. It's not interested in...
Okay, that's an interesting thing to break open and discuss. It is cool.
Yes.
But it's not like Tarantino cool, where it's like, I have to tell you how fucking cool I am, okay?
Yep.
Yeah? In order to make you understand how cool I am. There is kind of an effortlessness to it.
And the best way to be cool is to not try to be cool.
True.
It's
true.
Taking lessons from the coolest guy in the world right here, you know it. Because this is definitely, and you've alluded to this already, this is thematically similar to a lot of the post-Pulp Fiction kind of crime movies. Black comedies about dumb criminals and hitmen, mistaken identity, chasing a MacGuffin around, Mexican standoffs.
Was Landon turning on the TV and watching it and going, thank God this is narratively linear? Like, we're not breaking this up and telling it in 6 different chapters that are out of order? Thank fucking God. Yes, he was.
Yes, and look, that's something we can be thankful for. And was Truman turning this movie on and saying, "Oh wow, the characters aren't all talking exclusively in pop culture references," and like, great, that's also a blessing. Like, so many movies that came out post Pulp Fiction throughout the 90s, Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, 2 Days in the Valley, Destiny Turns on the Radio.
Touching on the big ones, yeah, I know.
I just pulling them. Maybe I pulled them off of a list on the internet of shitty takeoffs on Tarantino films. So many movies were like trying to just ape the aesthetics of Tarantino movies, which is just characters talking ad nauseum about pop culture and everything being really quippy and cool and trying to be cool. And this movie is able to be cool because it's just, we're going to invest in building out these characters and who these people actually are. Like, every character in this movie they have their own shit going on in their lives. Everyone's on their own emotional journey, and this business with the gun is kind of just some shit they're dealing with as they try to process other stuff in their lives. And
I will say, not surprisingly though, Julia Roberts might be the only one who doesn't have like a life outside of Brad Pitt.
I mean,
frustrating.
She wants to be a croupier in Vegas.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but that's a detail that's easy to overlook because it's not like front and center to her transformation.
I will fully grant you that Julia Roberts spends most of this movie talking about Brad Pitt. Perhaps not ideal, but also her scenes with James Gandolfini are still some of the best ones. And again, this is a movie with a hitman talking to the woman he's taken hostage in a diner, where they're just sort of like building a friendship, talking about their struggles to build relationships, and not
just
them
that
saying
scene you described.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Tarantino knockoff.
Well, yes, exactly. It's a guy with a concealed handgun in a diner, but they're not just engaging in tropes that have been in movies for the past 5 or 6 years at this point. They're actually charting out some new territory and talking about some deeper stuff, which, the movie is not trying to just follow directly in the footsteps of other stuff in the genre. It is trying to break new ground.
So we're kind of talking about the thematic stuff here, and I want to circle back to what I was starting to get into with the Margulies, why he's in prison.
We got lost. Sorry, I'm like Brad Pitt.
No, it's okay. So
up.
that we can start to chart these kind of thematic things, because this is a very thematic film. I feel like there's more going on than just the story.
Yes.
So I alluded to the traffic light scene, which opens this film, and it's not explicit, but that opening scene. Let's go through it this way. I'm going to ask you a yes or no question. Do you think that traffic light at the very beginning, where it's just a really slow push in on this traffic light in Studio City, just like, why are we watching a light? There's no characters. It's like, it's high above the street. Like, we're not even looking at cars really. And as we get really close on it, it's been a green light this whole time. Then it goes to yellow, and then it goes real quick to green and then red. And then you hear a car crash.
Yeah.
Is that car crash Brad Pitt smashing into Margulies?
Yes, absolutely it is. Yes.
It is, okay. I think it's alluded to, but it's not explicit in the film.
Well, Julia Roberts, 45 minutes later in the movie, gives context to this, is explaining to James Gandolfini how Brad Pitt came to be in debt to Margulies, and talks about that. And she specifically says he ran a red light, over there on Ventura near Laurel Canyon. So, again, real Studio City heads immediately can place this. But I think, yes, it's that moment because, A, we cut from hearing the car crash then to Brad Pitt, presumably several years later, sitting on the edge of his bed with this haunted look in his eyes, clearly reflecting on that moment.
I have a follow-up question for you then.
Yes.
As far as the theme of cursed objects, luck, fate, etc., that kind of glues this movie together, the stoplight goes, as I said, from green to yellow to green to red.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it Brad's fault that he fucked up? Or is it fate playing its hand?
It is not Brad Pitt's fault. Yes, it is. Brad Pitt is a soldier of God, as we are told at the end of the movie. Fate has brought him into Margulies' life so that all these years later, he can be the one who is there to help return this fabled pistol to its rightful owners. But yeah, the way Julia Roberts tells it, he ran a red light because he wasn't paying attention. What we actually see is that the light inexplicably flickers and brought him into this situation. And that does set up that, for a lot of the movie, Brad Pitt is being told that he's a fuck-up. Brad Pitt has internalized that he's a fuck-up, but then kind of, in the end, he comes to accept that, no, all of this happened for a reason. I wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. I have always been in the right place at the right time to bring me here.
What I like about this, in this film particularly, is that it doesn't... that element of it isn't overwrought.
Yes.
I feel like if this was a different kind of movie,
yes,
it would put that... there'd be discussions about fate throughout it. And, like, they'd be slowly uncovering the kind of supernatural aspects of this throughout, and instead it's just like these are characters, and the realization, if you can even call it that, about fate by the end of it is like a culmination of their identity transformation, their acceptance of who they are, who they can be, what chains they allow themselves to be kind of constrained by.
Yes, it's again reflective of how focused this movie is on characters and on just who these people are, what they're feeling, how they see themselves, and how they feel that they relate to others and what their obligations to other people are. Which, again, is not the sort of character-based introspection that you would get in a movie that is just trying to catch the Tarantino wave.
Is there anything more we want to discuss before, because we're going to spend the rest of this conversation mostly separating Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts. Is there anything more we want to talk about their relationship before we go into the Mexican section of the show?
I think the one other thing that's crucial is that although they are not married, they are in a marriage and family therapy group to try and sort out their relationship, and they've lied and claimed to be married to get into the group, which is just funny because I know numerous couples who are not married who are in couples therapy. Like that's not a you don't have to be married to get couples therapy. I don't know. I'm not.
When I see examples like this from 2001, it kind of staggers me how far we've come in the kind of therapy realm. Just in the like social perception of it in the last 20 years. Because like this film was, if anything, dates it outside of Brad Pitt's shirts.
The number of payphones, I think, dates it in a major way. Maybe. Collect calling.
J.K. Simmons with hair. The
allegedly
the thing that I think dates it is the VW bug. No, it's the fact that Julia Roberts is constantly throwing out these like psychological terms because they're like just entering the zeitgeist at the time. Like, you're deflecting, Jerry. You're deflecting.
Blame shifting.
Like, blame shifting.
Calling a timeout.
Like, all of that's. Yeah. Yep. All of that stuff that you would get from therapy sessions at the time. They're kind of delivering them as jokes, whereas I feel like if you were making this now, it'd just be kind of matter of fact.
Yes, there is. God, there's a whole other podcast to do where it's just looking at movies and how therapy is treated in them. I think the other night
I'm sure there are a few that exist already.
Maybe hosted by people who, unlike you, actually completed a psychology degree.
Hey,
sorry, that was a bit offsides.
I have read both volumes of William James. I'll have you know.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you.
I will just say I watched the movie Twister from the not Twisters but Twister singular the other night and was amused
Does
to
it come from the mind of David Frankel?
The twistered mind of David Frankel. But that Bill Paxton's fiance in that, who of course gets dumped because she's a total nerd who doesn't like storm chasing as much as Helen Hunt does, but that she is like, what's her lame normie regular society job? Oh, she's a therapist, and it's just like Judge Reinhold in the Santa Claus. Like, what's this wet noodle do? He's a therapist. Like, that's just. In the 90s, that was the worst job that a nerd could have.
Jamie Getz falls into the Schwimmer-Pullman conundrum. She is a perfectly acceptable person that you should be excited to marry.
Yes.
That's just through the fate of the movie doesn't want them to be together for some reason.
I mean now look, but honestly, Bill Paxton throwing off red flags left and right throughout Twister. Like she,
fair. Yes.
I mean, it's ultimately a happy ending that she doesn't get together with him.
Yeah, agreed.
We are not talking about Twister, although I'm also fully zooted on loving Twister right now, so I could if that was what our podcast was about.
No, we're talking about Brad Pitt getting to Mexico.
Yes. He goes to Mexico, he gets off the plane, he arrives at the, gets through customs, arrives at the rental car counter. The rental car guy is all ready to set him up with a perfectly nice Chrysler, but he asks for a car with a little bit more flavor, and the rental car guy rolls his eyes dismissively at this idiot gringo, and then issues him an El Camino.
Yes, which okay. So let's use this to talk about the kind of mentality of Jerry. I mean,
the Tao of Jerry.
Is he kind of a dum-dum?
This is the thing. Jerry is,
Or is he just uncultured?
He is unpretentious. He is not cynical. He is and he is sort of an innocent in a way, even though he has snuck a gun into Mexico and works for a mob boss. Like
and kills people.
And true. He well, actually no, Jerry doesn't kill anyone in the movie.
Oh, yes he does. Truman.
He what who does he kill in the movie?
Oh, you've blocked it out of your head. He kills the Gandalf.
Oh, you're right. He does kill Gandalf. Yes, but he comes back as James Gandolfini the White. So it's all okay. You're right. I blocked that scene out. It's a really big scene. We're gonna talk about it for like 3 hours later. Okay, fine. Okay. But he's not a hitman per se. Like he's mainly an errand boy who is given a gun.
He shoots someone in the foot,
which is pretty gnarly to do. Honestly, I would find a lot of excuses to not shoot a person, especially when they're tied up.
One person in my life has forced me to hold a gun, and it was the most uncomfortable experience of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of just the general like situation in which there was a person forcing me to hold a gun, but holding a gun in and of itself was like, this just feels not like a thing a human should do.
When you allude ominously to the general situation in which I was forced to hold a gun, I suddenly start to build out a Tarantino ripoff 90s movie type story about, was this like in Get Shorty when Dennis Farina makes that guy hold the gun and shoot the dead body once so it looks like he actually killed him?
In maybe not anywhere near the time I should have, but like maybe a decade after, I started wondering like, well, fuck, my fingerprints are on a gun. I'm glad nothing ever came of that.
I mean, listen, I think you only need to worry when there's some number of heads in a duffel bag. That's when they've really got you. So no, I think that Jerry is... He's pretty resourceful. I don't know that he's necessarily dumb. He's certainly like a good person. Like he really cares about Julia Roberts. He wants to make their relationship work. He is not like angry or vindictive when they're fighting and when she's yelling at him.
Right.
I think it's just that he is too kind of good-natured and open-hearted for the cynical world that he is moving in.
He's not a nice guy, is he?
No, he's not. No, he's not a nice guy. I think that capital N, capital G, nice guys think that they're being like Brad Pitt in The Mexican.
Okay.
But listen, I don't think that Brad Pitt's character would claim to have dibs on Julia Roberts' eggs.
That's fair. I don't think he would either.
He wouldn't wear a flannel hat with flaps on it. Because
actually he might. In fact, didn't he in one scene in Fight Club?
Yeah, actually, yes, he did in one scene in Fight Club, and indeed in one scene in this movie, he has taken his shirt off and tied it around his head, kind of like a flannel hat. I guess you can't escape it. But so him asking for the El Camino, I don't think that's him being dumb. I think that's he just kind of goes through life kind of wanting to make the most of it. It's like, I've just broken up with my girlfriend. I'm being forced to go on this job on the penalty of death, but I've never been in Mexico before. I may as well make some memories. which again, it's like this movie is not trying to be cool. It's not trying to portray this guy as a badass. Like this movie does not have a bleak and cynical worldview the way that so many movies of its genre do, where everyone is bad, everyone is evil and conniving.
Here's where I want to take this.
Okay.
I want to go through now that we're on different tracks with Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt. I want to take the Brad Pitt conversation through to the first telling of the Mexican story.
Sure.
And then we can switch back over to Julia Roberts. So we get to so Bob Balaban has said it's a simple job. You just need to go to Mexico, find this guy named Beck in this bar, get the Mexican, and come back.
Yes.
Now he arrives in the small town at night with the El Camino.
Yeah. El Camino, El Camino, El Camino. He's singing that song for like seemingly hours as he drives from the airport to this small town.
I can relate. He ends up in a kind of as the movie would have us believe, dangerous little pueblo where there's a bar. He goes in late at night, tucks the gun under his, he's bumbling.
Yes.
He is a little bumbling.
Yeah.
He puts the gun in his waistband. It slides down his pant leg and falls out the bottom, and he's like,
Yep.
oop, and he has to like turn around and pick it back up.
Yeah.
But he goes in and he meets Beck.
Yes. And
Let's walk through Beck. Because this is a very memorable section of the movie for me.
Yes. So he meets Beck. Beck has 2 turntables, but only 1 microphone. This is very important.
And he's sitting there with a bunch of bottles and cans that are all clapping their hands.
And you know what? He's a loser, and he does wind up getting killed. Beck, played by David Krumholtz.
Brad Pitt walks in and says, Beck, I'm here for the Mexican. Where it's at.
Okay, let's just take a second and think. Have we got any more Beck references?
Oh, I got a never-ending supply here. So
okay,
but I will refrain from doing any more.
Okay, that's good. We had to get it out of our system, and now we can continue. And we really didn't need to get it out of our system because Beck is not in this movie for very long. Beck is the grandson of Margulies, and Beck,
which we find out in a minute. Like that's kind of a slight twist that raises the stakes for Brad Pitt. But.
Okay, certainly. Brad Pitt goes to Beck, chats with him, says, "Hey, I'm here to get the gun." Beck shows the Mexican to him. He's got it in his backpack. Do you think... Okay, so Beck says, this gun is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. It's so amazing. Yeah. I just love to look at it. Do you think the Mexican is very super beautiful?
I do. Yes.
It's distinctive looking.
If it were in the Natural History Museum, I would sit and look at it for a bit.
Landon, do you think that pistols are naturally occurring objects?
Well, okay, listen, if you go into the basement of the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles, they have a whole section for like Spanish conquistador stuff, the Spanish explorers that went through the Los Angeles and western area of the United States. So I stand by it. Maybe it was a rotating exhibit. I know I saw something on the Silk Road there once, but I stand by what I said.
Oh, okay. No, that's totally fair. Hey, teach the controversy. I mean, this movie goes out of its way to show that the gun was handcrafted by a Mexican gunsmith, but sure, maybe it grew on a tree or something.
Okay. As far as...
Great audio, dude. I'm going to have a great time editing that and leaving all of that in.
As far as nature goes, do you contain nature to what's on Earth? Because they also have meteorites at the Natural History Museum.
Okay. I mean, man, once again, Plato and Aristotle debating the great issues of the day. Yes, I would, though, even if they don't originate on Earth, they are still not created by humans through industrial processes.
Okay, what about dinosaur bones? Clearly humans put those there, or Satan put those there to fool humans.
Yeah, this is fair. We don't know whether humans created them or Satan created them. Again, teach the controversy. So Beck has this gun. I think that the Mexican, it is a cool looking gun. It is. Yeah. I don't know that it's like astoundingly beautiful, but it does have like a cool, like the cylinder of it is shaped like a heart, and it like flips around when it's fired.
Hold on a second. Okay, Mr. When I was young, all I dreamt about was violence and guns, and those are the coolest things in the world. What holds up to your standard for a cool gun if this isn't the coolest gun you've ever seen?
I mean, it's not. I mean, it's cool looking. I'm just trying to. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I mean, cooler. Oh man.
What would be a beautiful gun to you?
I don't know. What would be a
beautiful... Young Truman. Tap into Young Truman.
Oh, tap into Young Truman. Oh man.
Or tune in on CBS. On Tuesday nights.
I mean, yeah. Young Truman would be canceled so hard. It would get canceled so hard that not only would it never make it to air, but everyone involved in greenlighting it would be sent to jail, creativity jail. I think a classic example of a cool gun in a movie is the sawed-off shotgun in Terminator 2 that Arnold Schwarzenegger is firing from the motorcycle, and he reloads it by twirling it around on his hand. That's a cool gun.
I didn't say cool. I said beautiful.
I think that the balletic action with which he reloads the gun is frankly very cool.
Which that I think started with Evil Dead 2.
Okay, I mean, any gun that Bruce Campbell uses in the Evil Dead movies, always cool. And
again, beautiful.
I don't know. And okay, beautiful gun. I'd have to say the Cougar Magnum in GoldenEye 64. But shows him the gun. David Krumholtz Beck has like almost an obsessive sort of attachment to the gun. He talks about how much he just loves to look at it, and then he tells Brad Pitt the origin story of the Mexican.
The first of 3 versions we get throughout this film.
Oh man, so good. We love multiple competing narratives, don't we, folks?
Okay, I mean, listen, we got into it on my Don Juan DeMarco episode. There's something about
Spanish guitar. God damn it, Landon.
Spanish guitar, but the kind of the romantic mythology.
Oh yeah,
that is being told here. I'm really into. I loved these little vignettes.
When I was a young boy, my father did not take me into the city to see a marching band.
Which season of Young Truman is this?
Yeah, this is probably season 4, the season where everyone was tried in the International Criminal Court for producing it. But no, I remember when I watched this as a kid with my parents, specifically that when Beck starts telling the story, we push in on Brad Pitt looking at the gun, and then his eyes flick up, and we hear the kind of whirring of an old film camera, and we cut to this very grainy kind of flashback in an old-timey Mexican town shot in this very stylized way. And that like close on his eyes and then the sound has stuck with me forever. I like sitting down to watch this movie, I was like, ooh, there's going to be that bit where we go in on Brad Pitt's eyes and we hear the sound of the old camera. This stuff completely sends me. I love it. I love all of these.
Well, it's so hard, I find, that a lot of films don't attempt it, and the ones that do, it's very rare that, like, telling a story multiple times throughout and shifting the emphasis or like unraveling what happened, like if it happened in the past or whatever, like it so rarely works.
Yes.
We get the history of the Mexican gun, how it was built, why it was built, all of the players involved in it, why it's cursed. We get that story 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And each time it's through a slightly different perspective with different information that is given to us, the audience.
And the new information, it keeps kind of recontextualizing the significance of this MacGuffin that everyone in the movie is chasing.
I would say this is one of the best versions of this kind of mechanic I've ever seen in films.
100%. And the basics that we get in this first story are, back in old-timey Mexico, 1800s, something like that, there was a gunsmith in a small town who created this very beautiful pistol, from silver and gold, with the intent to give it to the local wealthy landowner in hopes that the landowner's son would marry his daughter. The gunsmith completes the weapon, he takes it out into the town square, hands it to one of the townsfolk to test fire it for the first time. The man lifts the gun to fire it, he shoots, the gun backfires and hits the guy shooting it in the head, and it kills him. Oh no, you don't want that to happen. That's generally not how a gun is supposed to work. So the gun is, kind of rumored to be cursed, and
I would add that this mythology, the story behind the gun, is part of its beauty.
Yes.
Like it's very intricately crafted, but the allure of it, the enigmatic nature of, if I shoot this, what would happen?
Yes.
Kind of is part of why Beck is obsessed with it.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to just call out that I noticed on repeat viewings of this scene. So, we push it on Brad Pitt's eyes, we cut to the flashback, and the first thing we see is this just empty shot of a dusty street in the town. The street is completely empty, and then the camera basically pans 90 degrees to see all of the townspeople gathered waiting for the gunsmith to present them the gun. When we're first looking at that empty street, down the street in the distance, we see a mangy-looking dog run across the street. Keep that fixed in your minds, because we meet a dog as we go on, and folks, a hallmark of any good movie, I think this movie has a magical dog in it, and...
well, and the dog also, I think, is a nod to the film Yojimbo by Akira Kurosawa, which has a dog in it that has a severed hand in his mouth throughout the film.
Are you sure that the dog in this isn't a reference to See Spot Run? Where the dog also has a severed hand.
I could say more, but I'm not going to.
Wait, were you forced to hold a pistol during a screening of See Spot Run? Like, is this all tied together?
I will say no more. Let's get back to Beck real quick.
Yes.
Just to cover this part up, because this next part is really stuck with me. It's one of the most memorable things for me about this film, where after we get the history of the Mexican, Beck is gonna travel back to the States with Jerry for some reason.
That's part of Brad Pitt's mission is like bring the gun back, also bring Beck back with you.
Yeah. But after the storytelling, Beck has gotten really, really drunk, and they stumble out of this bar late at night while there's a festival happening.
Yeah.
A fiesta, you might even say.
That's what they call it.
The locals are also drunk and shooting their guns in the air, celebratory style.
Mm-hmm.
And while Beck is taking a piss and Jerry is making a phone call, Beck just kind of falls over backwards, and you hear this like,
yeah, really good sound design.
When Brad Pitt kind of turns back to get Beck, he's like, okay, come on. And he thinks he's drunk and passed out and like pissed all over himself. He gets him in the car, and I think it's the sequence of images here that really make this work, because you just see Beck fall over backwards in the background of the shot, and then Brad Pitt goes over and he's drunk. He picks him up by the arms, under the armpits, drags him to the car, gets him into the passenger seat, and like he's talking to him the whole time, and then kind of Weekend at Bernie's style,
Weekend at Becky's.
Beck just kind of like when Jerry is getting his feet in the car, Beck's upper body slides on the seat, and you just see from behind him a shitload of blood streaking from behind his head on the seat behind him.
Yes.
And Brad sees it and just goes, ugh, and pulls his hat off and just sees a single like perfectly circular hole in his head where one of the bullets that being shot by the locals had gone up and come down right through his skull.
As a young boy, seeing that, I was like, oh, that must be a thing that actually happens. Oh my gosh. A new thing to be scared of.
I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. I mean, what goes up must come down. In fact, I think Mythbusters did was it specifically Mexican related?
It wasn't about the Mexicans specifically, but when I saw this Mythbusters episode several years later, I was like, oh wow, I guess the Mexican was full of shit, because it turns out that they did it's not like a good thing to have a falling bullet hit you on the head. Like if I had to choose, I would prefer to not have that happen, but it won't like full on kill you. It won't like go into your brain. They were able to find it.
Well, don't try it at home regardless. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, that can be an official message from our podcast. But I think part of what's so great about this scene is how Brad Pitt figures out what's gone on, and we the audience, like the way that Gore Verbinski has set this up with the shots and what we're seeing, we kind of figure it out at the same time as Brad Pitt without anybody saying it out loud.
I don't know. I remember at the time and now, like, kind of being slightly ahead of Brad Pitt in this moment. And, like, to me, it plays into the kind of dramatic irony of this thing. Yes, this film has twists and turns that reveal things that we couldn't have known, like right after this happens, he gets back on the phone, and it turns out that Brad Pitt finds out that Beck is the grandson of Margulies.
Yeah.
Which he's like, oh fuck, well now I'm really gonna die. Even if I bring the Mexican back, they're gonna kill me.
Yeah.
Which kind of sets up the like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this gun now portion of the film.
Yeah.
Like he's then now that he has a dead Beck on his hands, he's he's having to decide what is the best course of action for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, almost as soon as Beck dies, though, he's on the phone explaining what happens and explaining, a falling bullet killed him. But then in the background, a bunch of people come and they steal the car that we know that the pistol is in.
Yes.
So there's never really any time period where Brad Pitt has the Mexican and doesn't have Beck with him. Like, it's almost immediately, Beck is dead, oh shit, oh now I also don't have the gun, oh shit. It's gonna look like I killed Beck and took the gun.
Yes. But I think it still stands that at this point he's like, no matter what I do, they're gonna kill me, and therefore I have to, like, start to play three-dimensional chess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Brad Pitt is playing three-dimensional chess at this point. I think that he's pretty much like, I just have to get the gun back. Like, I feel like, honestly, throughout the movie, even though there's double crossing going on around Brad Pitt, his motivation throughout is kind of just, listen, I just need to get this gun and take it back to Margulies. Like, even when he leaves the bar with Beck and Beck is pissing on the wall. By the way, Beck has some of the worst pissing stance I have ever seen. He is like halfway hunched over, like,
he's drunk, man.
Okay, Landon, I've been drunk before. I have pissed outside before. I have pissed outside while drunk. I have done a better job of it than this jabroni. I'm sorry. It's really... He deserved to die, frankly, for how badly he was pissing.
Oh my god. It's David Krumholtz. How can you want him to die?
I don't want David Krumholtz to die. He's great. He's a prince. He's been a wonderful guest on other podcasts. But what Beck is saying is like, listen, I told Margulies to fuck off. You and me, we should sell this gun. We should take it. We should sell it. And Brad Pitt is kind of just like, yeah, fuck off, dude. We're not going to do that. We're going to take the gun back. Like, and you could even argue that this is part of the curse of the Mexican already going to work. Like, as soon as Beck is talking about selling the gun, that's when he gets killed. The Mexican doesn't even have to fire to take someone's life.
Well, yeah, that's... I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much I agree. I mean,
wow.
A large portion I do, but I do think he's not, like, in full 3D chess mode here, but, like, this is the beginning of where he gets to the end, where when he meets Margulies and goes, give me a reason why I should give you the gun. Mm-hmm. And then we get the third version of the story. Like, you know, there's a double cross of J.K. Simmons, and, like, there is a part of this film where he has to start thinking about himself and how to keep himself alive so that he can get back to Samantha, Julia Roberts. And since he doesn't know who to trust, he's like, I don't know that if I give the gun back to Bob Balaban, he's not just going to kill me. I don't know if I get it to Margulies, he's not just going to kill me. I don't know if J.K. Simmons coming down here, you know, is going to save me, if I should give him the gun or if he's going to kill me.
I mean, sure, okay, he gets to that point eventually. He is not at that point now. At this point, he's just saying, I've got to get the gun back.
Well, yes, that is the first most objective, but I think somewhere in the back of his brain, he's like, this is starting to change. But so to wrap up just the kind of section we're in here with Beck's death, he goes chasing off. He doesn't have the gun or the car
yes anymore. Yeah, he has to basically, he borrows a donkey from an old man and tries to ride it out of town.
Meanwhile,
okay, something that's happened a lot on this show, something that I talk about a lot, is we will watch a movie and the first act will be just rootin' tootin' good times. I'm excited, we've set some stuff up, and then we get into the cold, vast, endless expanse of Act 2 and everything goes to shit. Not so with the Mexican. No, because we have a Sherpa, we have a guide, we have a light in the darkness.
Say a boss that is running this operation.
A capo, if you will. His name is James Gandolfini, and he shows up in the movie and just makes me so happy, and that's the secret to writing a good second act of a movie. Have James Gandolfini show up about 25 minutes in.
I'll be the first to admit I am knee deep. Oh, maybe not knee deep. I'm still in the first season, but maybe ankle deep in Gandolfini right now. And I don't mind it one bit. I invite it. I immediately after watching this was like, well, clearly I need to go watch all of the other Gandolfini movies. Maybe unfortunate for him, fortunate for us. There's a lot of forgotten Gandolfini movies, so I'm hoping the machine will send more at us.
My God, I am so up on James Gandolfini. He's so great. He it's again one of the colder takes out there that he's really good on The Sopranos. I don't know if you've seen In the Loop.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, listeners,
when they're figuring out like the finances for what is it, nuclear something on a speak and spell in that little girl's bedroom is one of the funniest scenes ever.
Yes, they're calculating how many troops they need to invade a country. Right. James, that is a movie for all you Gandolfini heads at home, where James Gandolfini plays like a 5-star general, and it's kind of a rare opportunity to see James Gandolfini not talking in a Jersey street tough accent. And also in that movie he has the great line where he says, well, you really do need to have some soldiers left over after a war, or otherwise people won't believe you when you tell them that you won, which I think about all the time when I play strategy games.
All right,
Julia Roberts.
Let's talk about this chunk of film. Julia Roberts said the ultimatum to Brad Pitt: if you go on this mission to Mexico, I will not be here when you get back. Our plan was to go to Las Vegas. I am going whether you're with me or not. And true to her word, she packs up her VW Bug that she maybe stole from Bridget Moynihan.
No, Bridget Moynihan's VW Bug is in the shop after crashing through that chain link gate.
Fair.
Okay, although it is weird that we've done 2 different movies now where there's VW Bugs doing some impressive stunt driving.
Yes, yeah. She packs up her VW Bug and starts heading to Vegas, stops at a shopping mall where she gets lunch and a soda.
A tab, which she drinks through a straw. A tab
soda with a straw.
Weird. Did you... you're in a food court, wouldn't you get a fountain soda? Or did you go to a vending machine? Then where did you get the straw?
Now listen, sir. Being... I'm not... We are not sponsored one way or the other, but being so vehemently anti-Pepsi, if there were a restaurant that only sold Pepsi, but there was a vending machine that had Coke, would you not abstain from getting the Pepsi at the restaurant and go to the vending machine to get the Coke?
No, absolutely. Not only would I have done that 400 billion times in my life when I've been at a place. Yeah, no, the bigger...
I seem to remember a time with you where they only had Pepsi and you're like, I'm going to go next door and get a Coke and bring it in here.
Yeah, I do that frequently. One of my favorite burrito places only serves Pepsi products, so I will either smuggle a Diet Coke from home in, or more likely I will stop at the Subway that's on the way to the burrito place, get a fountain Diet Coke, and take it with me. I am a strange man. I have problems and will probably die early because of how much Diet Coke I drink. She's sipping on a tab, reading a book about relationships, and being watched by 2 different dudes unbeknownst to her.
I love how this unfolds. So it's all... There's no dialogue here, obviously, because no one has interacted yet, but she's sipping on her tab, and then we cut to James Gandolfini, who's sipping on a fountain drink, through a straw near a carousel, and then we cut to someone watching James Gandolfini, who is sipping on a coffee. So you've got this kind of fun, like, who's watching who situation going on. Yes. Are they working together? In some ways, it has early Operation Fortune Scenes vibes in the airport.
I was looking around. Who's holding a map? That's how I know who the real threat is.
It would be Julia Roberts because she's charting her way to Las Vegas.
Yeah, but she's not punching anyone.
But Julia Roberts clearly is not in the know that someone's watching her. So she gets up and goes to the bathroom.
Yes.
Now, James Gandolfini doesn't follow her directly into the bathroom. The other guy who's sipping the coffee follows her into the bathroom.
Yes.
And immediately like breaks into the stall, turns the sign over. It says out of order, so no one follows him in there, and like proceeds to, in a kind of like real way, terrorize her, and starts the kidnapping process with a gun to her head, hand over her mouth. Like, you're gonna kind of scary shit.
You're gonna stop crying. You're gonna walk out of here with me. I'm not gonna take any shit. Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah.
By the way, Nancy Sinatra, "These Boots Are Made for Walking" is playing in the background the entire time.
That's right. The use of music in this movie is also really good, because it's not so like, look at this cool fucking needle drop moment we're doing.
It's both really cool. This whole sequence is set to this song, but at the same time, somehow it's not doing it in an aggressive, beat you over the head with it Tarantino type way.
Yeah, and this isn't the only instance of that throughout the film, but
yes.
It does kind of give a weird juxtaposition of, like, you got this bouncy song that is kind of a feminist anthem to a degree,
mm-hmm.
and it's juxtaposed with like kind of violence on this woman in a stall that is a real fear, I'm sure, of a lot of people. So
yeah, as he's holding her up, then he hears someone else come into the bathroom. Guy comes out, looks around. James Gandolfini pops out from behind a door with a silenced pistol, shoots him a whole bunch of times right as the song is climactically ending. It's very stylish and cool. He grabs a blood-splattered, screaming Julia Roberts and then drags her out of the mall, and she's like screaming and yelling to bystanders like, help me, help me. This is still pretty fucking real, and he's trying to take her to his car. It's blocked in. He throws her into her VW, and then is just like pedal to the metal, peeling out in the car, driving away.
This is the beginning of an Unsolved Mysteries episode.
It absolutely is. It's also like, I'm watching all these people, like watching a woman being dragged out of a mall screaming. I'm like, why is no one, like, is it just that you don't have cell phones? Like, people are being really chill about this when this is like the number one, like, pretty lady getting abducted in a mall parking lot. This is the biggest thing that the news is telling us to be on the lookout for.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, like, this sets up another kind of, like, who is who sort of mystery of this film. Not really a mystery, but, like, something that gets revealed later. You got two hitmen out, right? And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the general idea that Jerry learns from J.K. Simmons over the phone, that Bob Balaban has sent a guy out to pick up Julia Roberts.
Yes.
A guy named Leroy.
Yes.
And Jerry's like, I fucking met Leroy before. He is a psychopath.
J.K. Simmons is telling all these stories about Leroy, who we are led to believe is James Gandolfini. Well, James Gandolfini has introduced himself as Leroy to Julia Roberts. And yes, J.K. Simmons in Mexico is talking about how crazy and insane this guy is. He chopped up his mom and put her in the freezer and everything. And Brad Pitt is saying, I met this guy once. I don't know if all that shit is true. I still don't like the fact that there's a hitman abducting my girlfriend to use as leverage.
Yeah, right. So Bob Balaban has sent someone to get Julia Roberts to make sure that Brad Pitt brings him the pistol.
Yes.
Is essentially what we need to take from this. But
yes.
The fact that there are two men out for her is, at this point, a little confusing, and intentionally so.
Yeah.
The movie wants us to believe.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's that. What else about this section do you want to talk about?
Okay, well, so one thing I just want to call out. They drive away in the VW. He's driving super fast. He goes through this intersection and a car peels out trying to avoid him. They're driving up the freeway and he's trying to pass a truck on the left to just get away from the scene of the crime as fast as possible. He's plowing
going
through
over
all these
the
bollards.
traffic cones.
Yeah. This is the first of many instances in this movie where there is really intense and exciting car stunts that probably cost a fuckload of money and took a bunch of days to shoot, that doesn't strictly need to be in the movie. It's just sort of cool. And I love it. This is a thing about Gore Verbinski that I've heard, that he tends to really just do sort of needlessly complex things. Well, he will do very complex and elaborate stuff in his movies that is maybe not strictly necessary for the plot, but just winds up enhancing the movie overall. I think of the fact that with Rango, it was needlessly expensive, but he got everybody into the same room to record all of the voices together.
something that Spike Jonze replicated for Where the Wild Things Are, starring James Gandolfini.
Oh, well, okay. I was not aware James Gandolfini was in that movie, and I am going to stop recording immediately to go find it. No, I mean, this chunk of the movie, I don't know, it is setting up the James Gandolfini Julia Roberts dynamic.
Yeah.
And now he explains to her, I was sent by your boyfriend's employer, he's kind of gone MIA. Things are getting funky, and I'm just here to hold on to you to make sure he comes back and basically regulate funkiness. Like, she asks him early on after he's abducted her, are you going to kill me? And he kind of cocks his head and says, well, it depends on too many variables to answer right now. And then she says, are you going to rape me? And he says, no, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. And
this is all taking place at the diner scene that you were talking about earlier.
No, this is taking place at the side of the road immediately after the abduction. But then, they move on to the diner shortly thereafter.
Oh,
yes.
You're right. So, yeah, okay. So let's talk about that diner scene as well, because I want to get to some of the big reveals there.
Yeah, they've moved on down the road. They've, they take a long time getting to Vegas, honestly. Like, I can get from LA to Vegas in like 4 hours, one stop. They stop at numerous diners and rest areas along the way. But yes, they've stopped at a diner, and they've begun to open up to one another a little bit more. Like, as they've been on the road, James Gandolfini, she's been complaining about Brad Pitt, and James Gandolfini's been asking about the nature of their relationship and what's going on.
Yeah, I want to pause for a second, just because I think getting into his mentality, his character a little bit because it's kind of a breakneck, like, why are they learning about each other? Like, he just, like, violently stripped her from this mall. Because I think it's interesting how this character's played or written, in that he's a professional.
Yes.
And, like, the way they demonstrate him as a professional is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it does a lot of things simultaneously. Like, when they stop for gas, Julia Roberts is like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and you can't come with me, like, can I go? And he's like, you got 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, okay, 1 minute, and she goes off into the bathroom, and then, like, we cut to behind the gas station, and she's climbing out a window, and he's just like, kind of Bugs Bunny there along the side of the wall. He's like, what'd you expect? I'm a professional. I do this for a living. Where it's comic relief while demonstrating he is good at his job in the David Chase style.
Yes.
But it also it deepens their, like, rapport.
Yes. It's like she's tried to put one over on him and escape from him, and his reaction is he's not like mad about it. It's just like, yeah, I
part of the job.
I figured you were gonna do that. I'm just here. Okay, well, so let's get back in the car.
I would understand why you do that. And I am here in the back because people have done that before, and this is all part of the deal.
Yeah. So they wind up at this diner, and they're having they're having lunch together, and they're talking about the nature of her relationship with Brad Pitt and how he takes and James Gandolfini is almost sort of arguing on Brad Pitt's behalf, and we come into this conversation with him saying, like, well, you've said he's a considerate lover, so clearly he's not completely selfish. You just need to be able to find a way to expand his willing to be giving and considerate from sex into all other aspects of your relationship. And she's kind of like nodding and considering this.
He also introduces here this through line and capper to this film, which is, if two people are really in love, how much is enough? Or when is enough enough?
If two people are really in love and they just can't get it together and they can't make it work, what's the point at which you say enough is enough? And, this is a thing that he keeps harping on, and that Julia Roberts is always very evasive about with her answer.
Mm-hmm.
Crucially, in the process of having this discussion, he glances over to the counter, and there's a man sitting there who kind of glances over at him, and they both kind of check each other out, and Julia Roberts immediately clocks this and goes like, wait, what happened? Did you two just have a moment? And then she leans closer to him and just whispers, are you gay? And it basically plays out where, like, James Gandolfini sort of, like, is evasive about it at first, and then there's this back and forth between them where, like, she has teased this information out of him and is smiling, and he is kind of grinning back because he knows that she knows, and is kind of okay with it. But she goes, "Are you gay?" And he goes, "Do you want me to rape you?" And she goes, "Are you gay?" And he goes, "Do you want me to rape you?" And it's like, in any other hands, I could see that back and forth really upsetting the two of us. But in this scene where it's these two learning new things about each other and kind of they're both getting a little bit giddy off of it. Like, I feel like he doesn't have a lot of people he can talk to about this, and he clearly likes her, and she is, like, liking learning this new thing about them. And then almost immediately, then she's asking him, like, what, do you have a boyfriend? Are you full throttle? What's going on? And their dynamic immediately becomes not a hitman and a hostage, but, like, two people becoming best friends on a road trip.
A budding friendship, yeah.
I've watched this scene multiple times, and every time I watch it, I cannot keep the smile from my face. They are both so just, they light up the screen together.
So I have to, like, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to some of the reveals here, because I want to talk a bit about the nature of the, duplicity here, where it's revealed later that Gandolfini is not Leroy.
Yes.
Gandolfini is Winston.
Yes.
And we'll get in some more details about that later. The guy that he shot in the mall was actually Leroy.
Yes.
Who's not dead. He comes back. But
yes. He was wearing a vest.
When Jerry comes back from Mexico, or when they all meet up, and Jerry meets up with Gandolfini and Julia Roberts, as we said, he's met Leroy. And there's no way that James Gandolfini knew that he had met Leroy before. So the charade of pretending to be Leroy doesn't work on him, and that's why he kills him, because they're in imminent danger.
Yes.
In the period between when I had last seen this and, for this episode, this was a detail that got kind of twisted in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was watching it, I had a read on it that I thought was correct. And then by the end of it, I go, I don't think my memory was right on this.
Mm-hmm.
Where I thought, because he was pretending to be someone he wasn't, that meant he had to go all the way with the ruse de guerre.
No.
The ruse de gay, where he had to pretend to, engage in this pickup of this guy at this diner and go through with the hotel scenes, because it's the character he's playing.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
No, not at all.
I think he really is gay.
Oh, he's full throttle. He's fully gay.
But I don't know, when I was watching it this time, before it's like undeniable that that's the case, watching the scene going like, watching James Gandolfini go, well, I'm not, but I have to play that I am, like, gave it a weird dimension that I obviously can't credit him with, but it twisted my brain around a little bit. I'm like, oh, interesting. What lengths would a hitman go to assume a disguise?
See, this is great, because I had forgotten the twist that James Gandolfini is not, in fact, who he says he is. I had remembered that he was gay, but I had not remembered that subsequent twist. So as things progress between them, they wind up picking up the guy who he's made eyes at. Like, the next scene of them driving, like, he's in the car with them, he's hitchhiking to Vegas, and they're going with him. They wind up
even
all getting
that guy has a
together.
backstory.
Yes, yeah, he's talking about how he's a mailman, but every year he hitchhikes to Vegas just to kind of stay sane, and they all three get a hotel room together, and there's an amazing scene of them all dancing to Safety Dance drunk in the hotel room. James Gandolfini and this mailman doing some of the best dance moves in the world. I took a video of it off of my computer screen because I want to have that forever. But I'm just sort of like, I'm fast forwarding a bit on this relationship because we need to get moving on stuff. But like the scenes of kind of like them all going to Vegas together and Julia Roberts knowing that James Gandolfini has had a hard time keeping relationships going and kind of like wingmanning him with this guy, and them all sharing this hotel room and having a good time together. All of this stuff is great, and all of this stuff could completely be its own movie. Like, there is enough juice to just the hitman and his hostage becoming good friends and having a fun little gay road trip together, and the chemistry between all of them, this could completely work as its own thing. And the fact that it is just a subset of a larger movie, I don't know how you can look at this and be mad that we're not getting Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts together. Because, and also, I think that this is, it's a really fun opportunity to kind of have her and James Gandolfini and, you know, him being this gay guy, having them have this very emotionally intimate relationship. They get very close to each other throughout the movie. There's a recurring motif. You know, he first finds her in a bathroom and drags her out of a bathroom screaming, and then it's like he's guarding her in a bathroom later because she's tried to escape, and she's like, she doesn't want to go to the bathroom with him there, and it's this whole thing where like he goes and pees in the toilet next to the stall she's in. And then, you know, by one of their last scenes in this hotel room together, she walks in the morning and is like using the bathroom with the door open, and they're brushing their teeth together, and they have this like just this easy intimacy of like they've built this relationship as friends, as confidants in this short amount of time that you really get invested in. And so watching this, I'm really up on the two of them and their friendship. And I did not remember that ultimately there's a scene where James Gandolfini has pulled a gun on Brad Pitt and is ready to kill him, and Brad Pitt has to kill James Gandolfini, and that then immediately after that, Brad Pitt reveals to her, like, no, that wasn't Leroy. He was lying to you about who he was. Yeah. He was sent as part of this double cross to kill us and take the gun as soon as he got it. That hit me emotionally in a way that a movie hasn't hit me in a minute. Like, I felt... I had so much invested in James Gandolfini and in his relationship with Julia Roberts, and I felt the rug pulled out from under me in the same way that Julia Roberts does in those scenes.
Well, okay, let's just go there. I feel like it is the one biggest downfall of this movie, which is, yes, she has the immediate emotional reaction to Brad Pitt killing James Gandolfini, her friend.
Yeah.
And it's raw and it's like authentic. But once that scene's over, like, she's kind of okay with it.
True.
And
this is true.
I'm like, there's no lingering like distrust of Brad Pitt moving forward. Like they try to like fit this whole romantic comedy sort of vibe of when they are deciding, should we be together or is enough enough? She asks him the question that James Gandolfini posed to her, which was,
when two people really love each other but they can't make it work, when is enough enough, and they call it quits.
And Brad Pitt says, never. And she goes, oh, like, on her face, she's like, I didn't realize that was the right answer, and that is proof that we should be together.
Well, this is the thing. When you know, James Gandolfini has asked her this question earlier, and she gives some big evasive response, James Gandolfini says, no, the answer is never. If you love someone... James Gandolfini has told her the right answer to this question is never, and she sort of is dismissive. I agree with you. James Gandolfini dying does not seem to make a big enough impression on her. The fact that 2 scenes later she's watching a telenovela in a Mexican hotel room and kind of just like going along with it. It's like, I'm not over the real James Gandolfini dying. I'm also not over James Gandolfini's character in this movie dying, but she is. Yes. But what I really like about this scene where, like, you know, she is wound up in Mexico with Brad Pitt, and she is basically... It looks like she's going to get on the plane to go back to the United States post the death of Gandolfini. Brad Pitt has lost his passport and cannot get on the plane. But then she turns around, she comes back from the plane and puts the question to him. And I think the fact that Brad Pitt answers the question without hesitation the same way that James Gandolfini did, I feel like the fact that makes such an impression on Julia Roberts in that moment, and she realizes, you know what, I have my problems with my boyfriend, but... she has this window into him and is like, oh, there's the same kind of stuff and worldview that James Gandolfini had that I connected with so much. Like, some piece of that is alive in this guy. And, like, I felt so much love and affection for James Gandolfini, even though he was lying to me. I can see some of that is present here, and that is kind of what motivates her to stay in Mexico, stay with him, help him figure out this completely fucked up situation of the pistol. I think that is a pretty, I don't know, that is a well-earned moment, and that is a well-earned motivation for them staying together and trying to make it work.
Well, and it also plays into this kind of idea of fate, where like James Gandolfini came into her life to give her all this information to recontextualize her relationship with Brad Pitt and allow the final moments to have some sort of authenticity to them. Like,
Yeah.
all of this, something in the world, in the ether, is conspiring to make all of this happen.
Yes.
Now, listen, I do want to take a tangent real quick.
Okay.
I realized in Money Monster, I never did a deep dive on Julia Roberts' career.
Okay, we got a lot of movie ahead of us, man. But yeah, let's talk about Julia Roberts' career.
Well, okay, it's just that this movie comes at a very, very interesting time because this is the first film she does after Erin Brockovich, and her winning for Erin Brockovich was a pivotal point in her being taken seriously as an actress.
Yes.
So the fact that she is taking on this kind of weird movie, this kind of mixture of tones and genres, is kind of an odd step. Like, she clearly signed on to this before she won the Academy Award, which made it kind of a risky choice for her.
Yes.
I mean, risky in that, like, you're being paired with another huge superstar. You're not gonna, like... She was a superstar going into this movie.
Yeah.
She was gonna be fine, but, like... just to kind of give you some context, she was really just doing, like, rom-com stuff before Erin Brockovich. Leading up to 2000, she was in My Best Friend's Wedding, Notting Hill, Runaway Bride. She does her dramatic turn in... I mean, she's done drama, but, like, Erin Brockovich was the big, like, take me seriously movie. They do. And then she decides, I'm going to do this weird fucking fun movie with Brad Pitt with a, she was asking for $20 million per film. This film has a $40 million budget. Like,
yeah.
It says something about the quality of the script that attracted her to do it.
Yeah, like this movie was originally like they were going to just do a micro budget thing with no big actors, but Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt both they'd wanted to work together. They'd been looking for an excuse to do it. They found this movie. She showed it to Brad Pitt, and everybody signed on. So this was like,
yeah.
Julia Roberts also suggested casting James Gandolfini. So she
Yes.
she made this movie happen in a lot of ways. Like, she wanted this movie to get made. And
so, like,
and I'm gonna say, I don't know that a lot of other actors could do this as well as she. Like, this is...
Yeah, agreed.
She's navigating so many
at least not
different
at the
things.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actresses at the time, I agree. With her kind of status, along with her talent, it does create an interesting alchemy. And, while this didn't really, like... I don't know. The impact of it wasn't super huge on her. It did kind of, like, start to nudge her into more interesting roles, stepping out of that rom-com zone. And yeah, so I think that as much as we want to talk about Erin Brockovich as a turning point for her, I think we also kind of have to talk about the Mexican, because, like, it showed she had a bigger range than just what was being given to her, and she could nail. I think there's, even with the kind of underwritten stuff of her at points, she does wonders with it.
Yes, I think that she transcends the character that's on the page and brings a lot more life to a character who, in a lot of other circumstances, would really come across as just the nagging, mean girlfriend who is not sufficiently nice to her cool boyfriend. Speaking of cool boyfriends, unless you had more to say about Julia Roberts, do we want to just update people on what Brad Pitt is up to?
Well, I was gonna get us back into it by not going into a full biography of Brad Pitt, but this also is kind of a turning point for him, the same way that it is with Julia Roberts, in that he had been not really taken seriously as an actor through the 90s, just kind of a poster boy, and then he kind of, in a weird Johnny Depp way, was like, "Fuck it, man. My looks aren't going anywhere, so I'm just going to do weird shit." And he does, like, 12 Monkeys,
Great
which
movie.
he gets a nomination for.
So good in that.
He does Fight Club,
What's that?
I would even
Fight Club? I've not heard of this movie. Was there a poster for that hung in any white guy's dorm rooms ever?
Maybe.
Does that movie have something to do with...
I'll never tell.
Was there soap in that?
But this was like a weird period where it felt like he was rejecting what he was being told he could do, and he's like, I'm just gonna be fucking weird, man. I'm gonna do some weird fucking movies. And I would say the Mexican is short of maybe his character in Burn After Reading. This is the last weird Brad Pitt we get.
This is very proto his character in Burn After Reading. Like, I can see shades of Jerry in this movie, in the full-bore idiot who he plays in Burn After Reading.
Yeah, but we don't... This is the last weird performance we get out of him, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah.
You know, I think he does it so well, but he kind of just falls into, like, too cool for school Ocean's territory, or, you know, Academy bait films like Moneyball.
Yeah. I mean,
which is a good movie, but, you know, it's not weird. I like the weird.
Yes, listen, watching a really hot guy do dumb stuff, always fun.
You're gonna love Lost City.
Oh boy, I can't wait. Watching a really hot guy get a million leeches on his butt, always my favorite thing. So this really hot guy, Brad Pitt, is in Mexico. When last we saw him, his car with the gun he's looking for has just been stolen. Yada yada. He winds up trading his watch for a really beat up old truck. He's trying, he puts a call into
a truck that comes with a dog.
Yes, he gets this truck at a junkyard, and there is a really mean old dog that has a deflated football in the back. The dog is growling at him angrily, kind of like the dog in the back of the truck that Steve Martin and John Candy ride in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And he's like trying to get the dog out of the back. The guy who runs the junkyard, he's like, "Hey, can you get your dog out of here?" And the guy just hands him a leash. Like, the dog's yours now, dude. So he's driving around with this dog in the truck. He calls back. He's trying to, call his people back in LA. They say they're sending J.K. Simmons out. And then he spots one of the cars that one of the car thieves was driving going past him on the road. He follows it. He finds that car in his El Camino parked outside of a bar. The pistol is no longer in the car, so he crashes his truck into the car thief's car, impressing a young Truman Caps with the bravado of this plan, draws the thief out, takes him at gunpoint, throws him in the El Camino, whistles for the dog leaps into the back of the El Camino, and they drive off together, now with the pistol in hand.
So, okay, he gets the pistol back, and this eventually lands him in jail. Do we need to talk about how he gets in jail?
Basically, he has, after burying David Krumholtz's body, which has been in the back of the truck the whole time, he tying up and leaving the car thief out in the desert. Yeah, he's on his way back to the airport when a cop stops him and notices the blood.
He
in the
doesn't
car.
have his passport, right?
Well, no, he has his passport. It's just he's at a convenience store drinking a soda, which the kindly shopkeeper lets him have for free, and Brad Pitt is just like so like thankful, like, so he spends like 5 seconds just going like, thank you so much, genuinely, thank you, this means so much to me. He's so nice to this guy. But yeah, this cop looks in his car, sees the blood stain, and we just cut to Brad Pitt in a jail cell, and the cop has found the Mexican and apparently knows more history about the Mexican, which he proceeds to tell Brad Pitt.
Yeah, and so we get our second version of the story of the Mexican.
Yes.
Which maybe version isn't the right term, but the second iteration of it in which we get more information. So this time we learned that the blacksmith crafted the gun as a dowry.
Mm-hmm. Well, we knew that. Yeah. He was crafting it as a I'm sorry to buffalo you on this, but just
it's okay. Go ahead.
The gun was crafted as a dowry with the intention of his daughter getting engaged to this landowner's son. What we find out is that the gunsmith's apprentice is in love with his daughter.
And that's what confused me before.
Yes, and so the apprentice basically places a curse on the gun, hoping that the gun's repeated misfires and failings will sabotage the engagement so that he can marry the gunsmith's daughter, who also is in love with his apprentice.
Yeah, what happens when the gun is fired this time?
Well, so this time the gunsmith has hoping to have fixed the malfunction that led to the gun misfiring the first time. A new unlucky townsperson is drafted to test fire the gun. The bullet does not backfire, but instead it bounces all around the town, flies into a nearby saloon, and kills someone who's drinking in there. So once again, this gun ain't shooting right. I also love that in all of these little flashback scenes, every time the gunsmith's gun fucks up and kills someone unintentionally, the gunsmith does not care. He's just kind of like scratching his head, looking at the gun, like, I don't know, got it back to the drawing board, I guess.
In a weird way, that kind of like plays to like old school horror films where, you know, the mad scientist is more enamored with his invention than with the humanity of the situation.
Yeah, actually, it's Frankenstein's gun.
Was the dog in this version of the story?
No, the dog. I did not see the dog in this flashback. Now, of course, as we mentioned, Brad Pitt has this dog now that's following him around with a deflated football. This,
because it comes with the car.
Yes, I am pretty much convinced that this dog is the same one that we saw in the initial flashback scene, because there are
immortal dog. There
are no other dogs in this movie, and people who've been to Mexico know there's a lot of dogs just running around Mexico. So, like, the Gore Verbinski went out of his way to have only one dog be in this movie.
How many dogs that are running around Mexico have deflated footballs in their mouth? You know,
in my personal experience, none. But also, I don't think any of the dogs I've seen in Mexico were magical, immortal dogs.
Oh, okay.
So,
do you know that? Did you do a test? Did you do the immortal test on the dogs in Mexico?
I went up to each dog and said, "Hola, tú tienes mágica?" And the dogs all cocked their heads and said, your Spanish is really bad. You need to do more Duolingo before you ask us if we're magical dogs.
Yeah, so then we get a little bit of that, and Brad Pitt is still in prison. How does he get out of prison now that he has this new story?
Well, the cop basically says, "Okay, you're free to go, but this gun is mine now. The gun doesn't belong to you." And then Brad Pitt basically trails the cop and sees the cop take the gun to a pawn shop and sell it there. And then
weird choice, but
it's weird that the cop inexplicably knows the cursed and legendary history of this gun and is like, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to take it to a pawn shop that does not seem to be like
$25 maybe.
Yeah, it's not like an antiquities dealer. It's not like Sotheby's. It is like the sort of place where, you know, you can get someone's old keytar that they pawned to pay their rent. So then Brad Pitt, just kind of knowing that's where the gun is, he hangs out and waits at a nearby hotel, and at this point J.K. Simmons arrives. J.K. Simmons flies into Mexico, talks to the same car rental guy. The car rental guy tries to give him a Chrysler. J.K. Simmons also wants a fancy, a more lively car, so he shows up also in a muscle car.
The dealer rolling his eyes yet again at J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons rolls,
and I love that it's not just a Brad Pitt thing. Like this is where it is clearly like a commentary on the ignorant Americans coming down.
Yeah. It's just okay. It's great that you guys have a bunch of cultural perceptions of what my country is, but I'm just trying to rent cars to people. I don't know why I have to be a prop in this to you. I also love when J.K. Simmons arrives. He rolls up. Brad Pitt is sitting there with his dog friend drinking a beer waiting. J.K. Simmons jumps out of the car, and they're both like so happy to see each other, and J.K. Simmons has like bought a bottle of tequila along the way, and he's like, "Never fear, Teddy's here," and they hug, and like, I feel like I've seen a lot of movies lately where J.K. Simmons is a very intense, mean guy. He's J. Jonah Jameson, or he's like an emotionally abusive music teacher.
He just played Santa.
He did? Wait. What did he play Santa in?
The red one.
Oh,
Remember The Rock and Chris Evans had to go save him?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, no. How could I forget the red one? He's played such a crotchety, cranky dude in so many movies, and it's kind of fun to see him like a knock-around, good time guy version of J.K. Simmons in this movie, even though he literally is conspiring to kill Brad Pitt in like 2 scenes.
Yes.
But so, he shows up. He informs Brad Pitt that, by the way, Leroy is looking after your girlfriend now, and Brad Pitt is not happy about that. And then they hatch a plan to go to the pawn shop and steal the gun back.
Okay, so let's talk about him wanting to kill, not wanting, but being twisted into potentially killing Jerry.
Yes.
So he doesn't go down to Mexico with the intention of killing Jerry. Mm-hmm. He goes down there to help Jerry retrieve the Mexican.
Yeah.
But while he's down there, he's on the phone with Bob Balaban, and Brad Pitt kind of overhears this conversation, right? He's like coming back from getting sodas or something like that.
Getting breakfast for them the next morning,
Getting breakfast. And before he enters the room, he hears JK on the phone saying, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I understand. It's my job. Like, okay.
He has this recurring thing that he keeps saying throughout the movie is everybody, I'm just doing my portion. It's kind of just, I'm just going along to get along. He says something about how it's like that. I do my portion. That's why I'm 17 months of payments away from my own place in Boca Raton. Like he's going
to retire tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
He's that character.
Yeah. Except he does not appear to die in the movie, unlike most characters who are about to retire.
We don't know if he ever gets unhandcuffed.
Yeah, actually, we do know that he gets unhandcuffed.
Do we?
Did we watch the same movie? Yeah, we know he gets unhandcuffed.
I do not remember the conclusion of the JK character in this film.
It is left sort of ambiguous, but there is a really wonderful moment of visual storytelling. I want to there's great visual storytelling where we see, he's on the toilet in the bathroom on the phone having this one-sided conversation with Bob Balaban and he's saying kind of like, what? No, I don't want to have to do that. Oh man. Okay. No. Okay. Fine. Yeah, I'll do it. It's sort of clear from what he's saying that he is being asked to kill Brad Pitt once they get the gun back. And then we cut to outside the bathroom where Brad Pitt is standing there holding a box of breakfast listening to all this. And just in that one shot, it's telegraphed like, yes, J.K. Simmons thought that Brad Pitt was out of the room, but Brad Pitt has returned and is hearing this. It's another example of Gore Verbinski conveying a lot without having to say anything and just showing us these details.
Yeah. Okay, so then how does... This is the portion where, like, everything's starting to come to confluence, right? So how does Winston and Julia Roberts hook back up with Brad Pitt?
So Brad Pitt and J.K. Simmons, they go to the they go to the pawn shop, even though Brad Pitt has just heard that J.K. Simmons' intent is to kill him as soon as he gets the gun back. They go into the pawn shop, they hold up the pawn shop owner at gunpoint, ask for the Mexican back. As soon as they get it, J.K. Simmons is handcuffing the pawn shop owner to a pipe in the shop, and then Brad Pitt points a gun at J.K. Simmons and handcuffs him up and is saying, you were gonna, Bob Balaban told you to kill me. What the hell, man? Why are you doing that? What's going on? That's right, you don't know what's going on. So Brad Pitt takes the gun, leaves him handcuffed, tries to go back to the airport, but then he finds it at customs. Oh shit, I've got J.K. Simmons' passport, not my passport. I can't get on the plane. Meanwhile, in Vegas, James Gandolfini and Julia Roberts are waiting there at the gate for Brad Pitt to arrive with the pistol.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
The whole idea is there will be this handoff, but then he never arrives. So then, after a call to Bob Balaban, it's decided, okay, James Gandolfini and Julia Roberts are going to now go to Mexico and find Brad Pitt there. He will meet them at the airport.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, meanwhile, goes back from having tried to get on the plane. He rushes back.
So much back and forth here. I mean, it's kind of a if you tuned into TBS in the last third of this film, you would be so lost.
It's a lot. Or if you listen to a podcast where two guys try to piece together the events of the movie, you might also be so lost. Brad Pitt drives back. He goes to the pawn shop. He looks through the window hoping to find them, and instead he just sees the two sets of handcuffs have been popped open. J.K. Simmons and the pawn shop owner aren't there. What I really like, more great visual storytelling from Gore Verbinski, where they were sitting, there's the tools around them that they use to spring out of the handcuffs, but there's also a bunch of cards just laid out on the floor. Like, these two dudes, like, J.K. Simmons was being a real dick to this guy, holding him at gunpoint and, like, threatening to kill him. But what is telegraphed in this one shot is, like, well, evidently he and this guy got onto good enough terms to, like, play a couple hands of canasta before they escaped.
I'm glad you said that. For half a second, thought you were going to say there's a pool of water on the ground.
Oh, no.
Like, let's not relitigate that recruit conversation.
Yeah, no. Look, David Krumholtz was doing some really amateurish peeing in this movie, but that's the end. That's the end of that. That's left in Act 1. So yes, Brad Pitt now has the gun, but he doesn't have his passport, so he can't get out of the country. He can't get back to the States.
Right.
But so at this point, he gets a call at the hotel from James Gandolfini and Julia Roberts that, hey, we're in Mexico. Meet us at the airport to give us the gun, and I'll give you your girlfriend back.
Okay, got it. And then that's where we get the scene after they meet up. The three of them are in the car. Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts start arguing immediately again. Really, I don't know if it's just like a hitman in between two people acting obnoxiously that gave me Dumb and Dumber vibes.
Yeah, I got that too. They were this far away from singing Mockingbird, really.
But then, proceeds the whole Brad Pitt driving really crazily, getting a flat tire, having to undo the tire, and the whole execution of James Gandolfini.
This is
that we talked about.
This is another instance of Gore Verbinski going way harder than he needs to. They're driving along, and Brad Pitt finally says to Julia Roberts, "If you say one more word, I'm going to crash this car." Long silence, Naga hide, and then he steers the car off the road, is going towards a phone pole, but at the last second, they blow a tire and he veers back onto the road, and there's like 30 seconds of insanity of just cars coming towards them, veering off the road, a big tanker truck jackknifes, they have to get out of the way of that. It costs so much money to shoot this.
He knows when he needs to inject some energy into the movie at the right moments. But I would say it's not unnecessary, because clearly, if he knows that this isn't Leroy, he knows that from second one.
Yes.
And so this is a part of, this is intentional on Brad Pitt's part. He's arguing with Julia Roberts for a reason. He's taking the car off the side of the road for a reason, so that he can get James Gandolfini in a vulnerable position and take him out, so that he doesn't take them out.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, he has the second, even when he's driving up to the terminal to meet them, he recognizes this is not Leroy, there's something else going on. So even though he has the pistol with him, he's claiming he doesn't have it. I think he's led them to believe that they have to go somewhere else to pick it up. So yeah.
He hides it in the glove box. James Gandolfini discovers it in the glove box, and thus begins the execution scene.
Yes, exactly. This is another also, and then there's this callback moment that's great when they are, Julia Roberts is stormed off, Brad Pitt's trying to change the tire on the car, and James Gandolfini is standing behind him, and he's pulling out the gun, getting ready to shoot him because now he knows where the Mexican is. Earlier in the movie, when Brad Pitt first arrives in Mexico, there's this traffic light in Mexico that every time there is the to and from the airport, he goes by this traffic light. The light is red, it's an empty junction. Brad Pitt tries to run the light, and then he almost gets T-boned by, out of nowhere, this weird convoy of completely stripped down semi-trucks. It's just a chassis, an engine, and a steering column wrapped in cardboard, and a dude in a ski mask driving. Very weird. At this moment when James Gandolfini's about to shoot him, he hesitates because this same convoy of stripped down trucks comes back down the road. Another kind of fate magical realism thing.
Yeah. But the change being that at some point in this film, that I think started when I identified it earlier, that Brad Pitt is starting to affect his own destiny.
Yes.
He's not just a player in, his own life, or a supporting player in his own life anymore. He's now taking control. He's now making decisions. He's now, allowing himself to kind of become the fated person that he's destined to.
Yes, because in this scene is when he takes control of his destiny, and he basically, he sees that James Gandolfini is going to shoot him, but he's able to get the drop on him and shoots Gandolfini first. Explains to Julia Roberts what's going on, and he has this kind of triumphant moment of yeah, I'm the man. I'm not a fuck up.
Also, that's happening while Julia Roberts is crying over James Gandolfini's body in a weird kind of juxtaposition.
Yes.
That in another movie would have felt crass, but this one is so many moments in this movie are making us laugh over really dark, bleak things. This one's making us cry over something funny.
Yes, exactly. The Mexican just overall has this real kind of clarity and confidence of what it's trying to do and what it's going for and what you're supposed to be feeling that is present in every scene, that it ties together all these things that in another movie would feel completely disjointed.
Yeah, agreed. This movie only works with the alchemy of everyone that's involved. You change any aspect of that and it's fallen apart.
Different director, different writer, different actors, it just would not fly.
This gets us basically into the last part of the film.
Yes.
Which is Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts are they had their airport moment. They know they're destined to be together forever because he said the word never. He's got the Mexican, and now he's in a position of negotiation of how do I work this so that I don't get killed.
Yes.
And we're done with this shit forever, so that we can go live our lives. We can go get married.
Yeah. Like they've kind of both resolved that it's like, look, we're not doing any double crosses. Whatever's going on, we just need to put this gun in Margulies' hand so we can get out of being in debt to him.
Here's how to approach this last portion. Julia Roberts is now helping him in his quest to not double cross necessarily, but like figure out how to go about this.
At this point, they are kind of just at the hotel. They're waiting for the U.S. consulate to just issue Brad Pitt a new passport, which is a rare moment of an awful thing that would happen on a real life vacation intruding on this kind of action comedy movie. But so as they're waiting around and they're kind of strategizing about, okay, we just need to get back to the U.S. We need to give the gun to Margulies. We don't know what kind of separate game Bob Balaban is running. At this point, they've realized that it was clearly Bob Balaban who sent James Gandolfini to try and...
Well, and as an audience, we've learned, separate from Jerry, that Bob Balaban wants a gun for himself.
Yes, Bob Balaban feels like Margulies has gone soft in prison. Margulies, it turns out, wants to shut down the entire organization for some reason. So Balaban wants to steal the gun, pin the whole thing on Brad Pitt, sell the gun, make some money. Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts have figured this out too, and now it's just, okay, we need to find a way back into the States with the gun so we can get out of this situation. Brad Pitt hears some people fucking with his car outside. His dog friend is barking and alerts him to it. He winds up getting ambushed by a group of people, the same people who were the car thieves who stole the car in the first act. They take him to this mansion outside town where there is, an old Mexican man waiting there, as well as Margulies, who we see for the first time, played by Royal Tenenbaum himself, Gene Hackman. It's a huge piece of stunt casting. It comes out of nowhere. It's a brilliant surprise.
Fucking Gene Hackman is on the board for Movie Memory Machine.
Finally, we got him. I was so thrilled. I did not remember him in this movie at all. This was another end of the movie plot twist I'd forgotten.
Oh man, I remember in the theater being like just jazz. In fact, like I hadn't been exposed to enough like stunt casting and like these sorts of roles that I remember being in the theater going, he looks like Gene Hackman. He sounds like Gene. It can't be Gene Hackman. But I think it is. It has to be.
One scene. That's all.
Yeah. But I have to just say, I am a proponent of not deifying anyone. You're gonna find skeletons in everyone's closet.
Oh, sure.
I don't think we should, put anyone on a pedestal. That said, if I had to choose a pantheon of favorite actors, Gene Hackman would be in my top 10.
It's just, I don't know, seeing this and also this being Gene Hackman of around the era that he was in the Royal Tenenbaums,
the same year.
Yeah, same year. I don't know, like, seeing that exact same Gene Hackman is the one I really fell in love with in that movie, being in this movie, is just, I don't know, it's fun for me. And also, he has one scene, one big monologue, where he basically reveals that he is no longer the shadowy, fearsome crime figure who we thought he was. Turns out that being in prison actually made him less violent, which is a thing that is often not the case with prison.
Well, because of a very specific reason. He was put into a cell with someone who gives us, essentially, the third version of the history of this gun.
The elderly Mexican man who's also in the room, who owns this mansion and seems to be a crime boss or a powerful person in this area. His name is Tropillo. Yes, his son was incarcerated with Gene Hackman, and his son told Gene Hackman this story, which we then, get the final version of, which is that when the wealthy landowner and his son came to town for the wedding...
Sorry, I gotta zoom in on your eyes real quick and go...
Yes, you remember this forever, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a dog running around behind me. Do you want to speculate on the significance of the dog?
I want to go pet his head. I like to pet dogs.
Well, this dog does not seem to like to be touched in the movie, but...
It's a fair point, yeah.
But the landowner and his son come to town for the wedding to the gunsmith's daughter, but then the gun doesn't work, it misfires, but it doesn't kill anyone, and then B,
it misfires twice.
It misfires twice, but it doesn't kill anyone, so that's a bonus. But
because doesn't the landowner try to kill the apprentice?
He sees the way that the gunsmith's daughter is looking at gunsmith's apprentice, puts together, this my bride to be is in love with this commoner. He's a bad guy, a mean dude, if you will. So he pulls out his gun, is going to shoot.
Not the apprentice.
Yes, the landowner is the bad guy. Pulls out his gun and shoots the apprentice dead in the street. And then the gunsmith's daughter grabs the Mexican off the ground, puts it to her own head, pulls the trigger. This time it fires. She kills herself. Tragic star-crossed
Worth saying,
lovers.
she was devastated because she was also in love with the apprentice. Like, there's a whole Romeo and Juliet. Like, I can't go on living without my one true love.
Yes, exactly.
And it's essentially that true love is what lifts the curse of this gun and allows it to fire. It just happens to be that she chooses to fire it at herself rather than at the landowner. And
then, as it is told in this version of the story, her soul is then bound up in the gun in a sort of purgatory, and that, in a way, is the curse of the gun. And so, Mr. Tropio, the father of this guy who was in prison with Gene Hackman, has been searching for the gun because he wants to bring it back. He is the descendant of the gunsmith, and once the gun is returned to its rightful owners, the daughter's soul can finally be free. And he also, Gene Hackman explains that, this has become his sole motivation now because
he's so moved by this story.
Yeah, and because the son of Tropio wound up getting killed in a prison fight protecting him, and he swore that he would do this favor for the boy's family. And he also explains to Brad Pitt, it's like, the whole reason I sent you down here is because I knew that I couldn't trust Bob Balaban, and fate is what brought you into my life. The only reason that I heard this story is because I went to prison. The only reason I went to prison is because you hit my car. All of this was fated. Tropio is explaining to him, you're an agent of God, a soldier of God, and that you're, so he's basically told, you're not a fuck-up. All of this was fated. You were doing, you were following in the footsteps of legend.
And all of this is in response to Brad Pitt entering this room going, why should I give you the gun? I need to look out for myself here. Convince me that this is the right move for me to do.
Yes.
And that, I think, is like kind of a brilliant moment of filmmaking, of not necessarily like the script devices there, but like to know your whole movie, the whole motivation, the whole setup of fate, the whole selling of this idea is going to fall on a monologue at the end of this film. You need a heavy hitter to sell this.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are you're casting an A-list star, I mean, which could just be like, we're cameo grabbing the way we do in 2025.
Yeah.
But you're getting someone with gravitas who's going to treat this monologue with, intention and like really fucking sell this thing.
Yes.
And Gene Hackman is so good in his 5 minutes on this film.
It's really, it's incredible. I feel like there are times when I see a big actor in a movie and it's like, you get this sense of like, well, you were on set for a day, you collected your paycheck.
Yeah.
But this really is like, this doesn't feel like just a one-day job to Gene Hackman, even though he absolutely was there for one day shooting it. Like, this feel like you feel like he cares about this shit. He cares about this monologue.
He sells it, man.
He's built out this character in his head. And also, Margulies...
But he sells the mythology, too.
He sells the mythology, and also it's the mythology of this gun colliding with the mythology of Margulies, this character who has been legendary as a threatening... bad guy crime lord for the entire thing. Like, Brad Pitt's whole motivation is not wanting to get killed by this guy. And then it's like we are finally seeing him and seeing the way that he has changed and the way that he has... Like, it's what we've heard about him versus what we're actually seeing of him is...
Yeah, there's a term for that sort of character that comes from The Third Man with Orson Welles, and I can't remember what the name of that the character type is, but... It's a well-defined, like, you hold off on revealing the, like, You mention a character throughout the whole thing, and then you reveal them at a pivotal moment.
Yes, and it's doing so much with so little, and it's being so it's such a gentle touch in this, and it's not overdone in any way. It's just we thought this guy was some Marcellus Wallace type psychopath the whole time. But in the end, it turns out he's actually one of the smartest, kindest people in the movie. Like, you immediately, I mean, maybe a certain amount of what you bring to this is just being excited to see Gene Hackman, but you also just, like, in the way that he's talking and the reverence that he shows for the gun and for the legend and for the people around him, you're like, this is the one gringo in Mexico who seems to get it and be respectful of this place and the people and the history. I also want to say, just to the fact that this movie is sort of all about fate and everything being fated to happen.
Yeah.
I usually hate that in a movie because it removes all agency from the characters. And I think
unless it's a rom-com, like Serendipity, where it's like kind of the whole point of going to the movie.
Sure. I mean, I think that it can work if the movie owns it and is smart about it. And I think what also the Mexican does well is it doesn't hammer, you were talking about this earlier, it doesn't hammer you with the concept of this is all fated the whole time through. It only really tells you the whole thing is fate in the last 5 minutes of the movie. So you've been invested in everything the whole time, and by the time you learn, oh, this was all fate, everything was meant to be a certain way, you've already had a good time and you're invested in everything, so it doesn't, you don't like check out on the action of the movie. Or at least I don't.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. Especially like when it's all wrapping up here, it could lead to a very unsatisfying conclusion, but they really nail the landing. Though I am a little confused about the last thing that happens here. So let's get to the Bob Balaban part.
So, knowing this, Brad Pitt goes back to the hotel now with the, with Tropio's men to get the Mexican. He has left the gun at the hotel with Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts has hidden the gun. She's used a handkerchief to tie it to her upper thigh and hide it under her skirt so no one will find it. And she has a remarkable amount of mobility given the fact that there's a big, heavy 18th century pistol tied to her leg. I'm not complaining.
With just
I
a
love
handkerchief,
the movie.
not even elastic.
I know. Is she in the Girl Scouts or something? How is she tying a knot that tight? Who knows? But
without cutting off her circulation.
That's one of many problems she has in this last scene. While Brad Pitt is away, she is alone at the hotel, and Bob Balaban shows up with a gun to capture her, not aware that she has the gun on her person. Brad Pitt gets back and finds Bob Balaban waiting outside the hotel with a gun, Julia Roberts locked in the trunk of his Chrysler. You know Bob Balaban is a bad guy because he took the Chrysler that the rental car guy was offering.
Wait a minute, that's confusing.
I guess that is confusing. I mean, so the one person who does the thing that the Mexican rental car guy wants him to is actually the most evil one in the movie. Was the rental car guy a bad guy the whole time? Much to consider.
I don't know.
But so he's there. Julia Roberts is in the trunk. He's saying, tell me where the Mexican is, or I'm gonna kill your girlfriend. And Brad Pitt says, well, she's the only one who knows where it is. He opens the trunk, and Julia Roberts, who has the Mexican with her, comes out of the trunk pointing it at him. There's one bullet left in the gun, which David Krumholtz has shown us earlier. And so this literal Mexican standoff ensues. Not only
just a standoff.
Well, it's a standoff, but it's also in Mexico, and she's using a gun called the Mexican, and it's called a Mexican standoff when multiple parties are all pointing guns at each other.
I think it's just called a standoff now.
Oh, are we not allowed to? Well, okay, this is still a Mexican standoff 2 times over.
That's fair. Okay, I'll take this one and only instance of it being a standoff.
The majority of the participants in the standoff are also Mexicans, because Tropio's guys are with Brad Pitt. Anyway, she, then Brad Pitt is, with all of his knowledge of how cursed the gun is saying, like, please don't shoot him. We have no idea what's going to happen if you pull the trigger. But then Bob Balaban says to her, don't you know when enough is enough? Which, has echoes throughout the movie of, like, when is enough enough? When do you give up on things? She, angry at Bob Balaban, shoots him, and
I don't want to skip over some of the like vibes of what this is, because like it's so dramatic, a lot of back and forth of everyone looking at each other, not knowing what's going to happen with this gun. Is it going to fire or is it not going to fire? Because we've seen 3 versions of it where we don't quite know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it does. And we don't know if it just like, was the bullet any good? Like, it fires and there's just this like lingering, what just happened? Everyone's still kind of staring at each other. And then it's like only after a few like Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts look at each other and she's like, I'm fine. And then we cut back to Bob Balaban and he just kind of opens his mouth and this little bit of smoke, like those TikTokers.
Dope as hell.
He's doing vaping.
Yeah.
He's got to open his mouth and this like vapor comes out of his mouth and he's like, and then he pulls his turtleneck down and you just see, just like David Krumholtz had a perfect circle in his head. Like he has a perfect circle in his throat and it starts spilling out blood and he falls over. And it's a wonderfully crafted moment.
Yes, the fact that she fires and there are 2 seconds where everyone there on the street, with the exception of Bob Balaban, I guess, knows that this gun is famous for not shooting the person it's supposed to, and they're all looking at each other like, which of us is gonna die? Who did it happen to?
Yeah. And there's a moment of like the flashbacks set up so well the peril of this moment, because Julia Roberts fires it. I mean, I guess she doesn't know the history of it, so she doesn't know she's firing it with danger to herself. But
which enhances
you've seen that very first
the tension to some degree. It's like, wait, she doesn't have all the information she needs to make this decision. Yeah,
right. Which is playing out on Brad Pitt's face while he's watching her like, don't fire that gun.
Yeah,
but she does. Now, here's the confusing thing to me: when she fires the gun, something falls out of it.
Yes, there's basically a wedding ring around the barrel of the gun, and when she fires, it falls off of the gun and lands in the street. Now, and by the way, this is like a Gore Verbinski bit. Like, this is a shot that was mirrored in Pirates of the Caribbean, where there's this slow motion shot of the ring spiraling downwards and landing and clattering on the cobblestone street. In Pirates of the Caribbean, there is at the very end, when the last coin of the treasure is returned to the treasure chest, there's a slow motion shot of the coin spiraling down and landing on top of all the treasure in slow motion. A shot I remember because it looks dope as hell.
And you know what, Truman? Between this film and Pirates of the Caribbean, Gore Verbinski directed The Ring.
Oh, interesting. So, was there a ring in that movie as well?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if it was more of a kind of theoretical ring.
I mean, I don't want to spoil what the ring turns out to be in that film, but
okay. I guess I gotta watch The Ring to find out the mystery of the ring. Yes, it is a little confusing. Like, wait, so did the gunsmith build a wedding ring into his gun, or did just part of the gun break and it happens to be Julia Roberts' exact ring size?
Yeah, this part really confused me. It confused me years ago. It confused me now, where it's like, it's kind of cool, an idea of like the wedding ring in the barrel of the gun only will fall out if the gun shoots properly.
Yeah,
like that would be a cool thing if the apprentice kind of worked that into the mechanics of it.
Yeah,
as part of his curse. But like, this is a culmination of this whole idea of fate and true love, where because Brad Pitt said never,
yes,
and we know that they're going to be together forever, presumably.
Yeah.
They are now worthy of this gun.
Mm-hmm.
Their love is worthy of this gun. Therefore, it fires correctly and provides them with the symbol of true love that they can then wear for themselves.
Yeah. It's one of the...
Symbolically it works. Mechanically I don't quite understand it. Where does the ring come from exactly?
I would argue that it doesn't need to mechanically work at this point, because the movie has done so much of the legwork in terms of all of the emotions leading up to this moment. Everything happening here is so earned.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts have figured their shit out. Brad Pitt has realized he's a soldier of God. Like, everything has come together, and also it's pretty well established this movie is magical realism, or this is a realistic movie where the characters have wandered into some magical realism, and everybody's just sort of on board with it at this point. But yeah, so Bob Balaban dies. The Tropio's men take the gun and bid a fond farewell. Brad Pitt
allowing them to keep the ring.
He says, "May I?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, go for it, dude. We've just witnessed a miracle." And he puts the ring on Julia Roberts' finger, and then we see Tropio back home putting the gun up in its rightful place on the mantelpiece, and then the dog, Brad Pitt's dog, has gone off with the men, and the dog is sitting there next to him watching him do this, and the dog looks up at him. So I'm wondering, I mean, we see the dog in that first flashback scene. Is the dog... I'm trying to figure out who the dog is. Like, is the dog the spirit of the gunsmith? Is the dog the spirit of the gunsmith's apprentice?
No. The dog is fate. The dog is the kind of keeper of the events that need to happen. He's the watcher. He's the one that has to witness the miracle to make sure that things play out, and goes back to the fate department where he can safely submit his documents to admin to say successsull.
Oh, great, dude! You had to bring some multiverse bullshit into this, some Loki ass nonsense where it's like there's a whole franchise about this dog going off and taking part in other magical realism adventures.
I mean, would you be too surprised if there was a mid credits sequence in here of someone from Fate coming down to talk to Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts?
Brad Pitt, I'm here to talk to you about the Ring Initiative. Yeah. Here's this videotape. Do not watch it.
It's your wedding.
And they drive off into the sunset having an argument about how to pronounce nobleman, and we get a final shot of the traffic light hanging over the intersection. And
the traffic light?
Yeah, the traffic light. I spent so much time scrubbing through this movie on Pluto TV, watching the same goddamn ads a million times, trying to find all the instances of them driving by the Mexican traffic light, because it's like he tries to run the light at the beginning of the movie and he nearly gets hit. Then every other time he's driving through there, the light is red. There is another point after James Gandolfini has died and Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt have reconciled. They drive past the traffic light and it's showing yellow, and there's a road crew with a cherry picker working on the light. So I'm trying to figure, is the light symbolizing their relationship and now it's like they're fixing it?
I think it's symbolic of where in the course of fate they are.
Because then at the end of the movie, when they drive past the light, it's green, and then as they drive away, it cycles to yellow.
Yeah. And it makes us wonder, is it going to go back to green like it did at the events leading to this whole debacle in the first place?
Yeah.
Truman's got his "it really makes you think" face on.
The thing is, I normally say it really makes you think when I'm talking about something stupid that's trying to be profound. This movie is profound. This is a really, really, really good movie that I like so much, and I am so glad that we watched. I fucking love The Mexican. I watched it twice in 2 days, and when I fired it up for the second time, I was thinking, I'm just gonna watch a couple scenes from the beginning for my notes, and I wound up watching the whole damn thing because the movie is so fucking good and fun to watch. I love The Mexican. Everyone should go watch it. You would probably get more out of it if you hadn't heard us messily recap it and blow some of the big reveals, but hey, you know what? The movie still has a lot of value.
So, okay, why you love it? Why do you think it was forgotten?
I think that people walked into this movie expecting a different bill of goods than what they were given. This movie has Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts in it. The poster for the movie is literally nothing except Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts nuzzling in the street.
Yeah.
You're walking into this movie, you're expecting either You're expecting Julia Roberts and Brad Pitt together in most of the scenes, and also, we have not watched the trailer for this yet, tune in next week, but I'm gonna wager a lot of money that every trailer for this had every single gun-shooty, pointy, fighty, actiony, car-chasey scene in it. So you're coming into this expecting an action movie with Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts in most of the scenes, and what you get instead is a very thoughtful movie about relationships and fate and emotions. So, like, this movie got butts in seats based off of the cast, but I think the owners of those butts were sort of disappointed that they didn't get what they had expected, and so they came away disappointed from it or confused by it. And, you know, ultimately then this movie just sort of got overwritten in everybody's collective memory because most people remember it as the movie that didn't do what they wanted it to do.
Yeah, and I think, like many other films we've talked about, this also suffers superstar syndrome, where, like, you think of Julia Roberts movies, you think of Brad Pitt movies, you know, or you think of Julia Roberts / Brad Pitt movies, and this is not the first you think of.
No.
You know.
No.
So, like, there's that. I also think, Truman.
Landen.
Are you willing to go with me on a little journey?
Are we okay? I'm willing to go with you, but you've got a Chrysler here, and I'm just wondering if you got anything with a little more Wisconsin flavor to it.
An El Camino.
Ooh.
Okay. I want to just speculate. This isn't concrete, but this is just my own kind of like gut instinct about how film internet has kind of changed how we look at and canonize films.
Sure.
Which is, we love to make lists.
Oh boy, do we ever.
We love to categorize.
We love to make GIFs.
We love to make GIFs. We love to demolish the canon and replace it by creating one of our own.
Mm-hmm. Hang on. Explain what that means. I actually don't know what that means, but I said mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. The canon being like AFI's top 100 films of all time,
yes.
Or Sight and Sound, and, you know, everyone going, who's contributing to these lists? Why are you telling me that Citizen Kane is the best film of all time? Why don't we actually, like, contribute more women filmmakers and people of color that are making films? Why is this so homogenized? Fuck the canon. You know what? If you're gonna do your canon, I'm gonna do my own canon. And so in that process, when you're looking at creating your own, like, list of favorite films or your own, like, crime films, and you're looking at the lists you're creating and the way you're categorizing them, you get a film like The Mexican, which is hard to categorize.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to place on a specific list, and so it's easy to overlook. And because of that, I feel like it gets overlooked a little bit, and then suddenly we're 20 years past it, and it's like, oh, The Mexican, right, yes, that's a film that exists. Did I see it? Did I not see it? Do I remember it? Do I not remember it? You know, I think it just kind of, like, that's how societally we've gotten away from talking about The Mexican.
Yeah. It's difficult to categorize. We don't know how to remember it, so we don't remember it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a romantic comedy, but it's got romance and comedy in it.
Yeah. It's
not a crime film, but it's got a lot of crime in it. It's not a comedy in and of itself, but it's funny.
It's sort of a crime film, but the audience for crime films is not like, it doesn't really work for the audience for crime films. It's a crime film that is primarily about romance. It's a romance film that is a lot about crime, and so, like, a lot of the base audiences for those genres are going to come away sort of unsatisfied from this movie if they're looking for a specific thing.
And it doesn't quite have the, like, bro culture weirdness to it that, like, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas does.
Absolutely.
Where, like, that's another hard to categorize film, but you've got Johnny Depp seeing lizards in a bar, and, like, clearly, you know, people are going to go gaga. Guys are going to go gaga over, like, this is the greatest film of all time.
Sure.
So, like, yeah, I feel like it just kind of falls between too many cracks to, like, really have made a cultural impact.
Yeah. Like, this is a movie where the big takeaway from it is not, like, oh, that was awesome. It was like, well, I mean, for us, it was, oh, that was awesome.
Yes.
But it's not something like, it's not, it doesn't have like a Fight Club plot twist or a Fight Club fuck the system message. The ending message of it is that if you love someone, you have to keep trying and making it work because love is a rare and precious thing in a chaotic world, which is just, you don't, that's not the sort of thing that you put up on a dorm room wall.
So, okay, the least surprising question and answer session that's ever existed. Should we send this back to modern memory or leave it forgotten? Truman, what do you think?
Absolutely. Send it back, man, and remember the fuck out of this movie. I mean, you and I both already remembered it in a remarkable amount of detail, but I want to share that with the world.
Yes, totally agree. And in fact, I would say, like, if you are in a Brad Pitt mood, if you're in a Julia Roberts mood, why spend your time going back and watching the, like, Oscar baity stuff? Like, if you've seen Babylon, you never need to watch Babylon again. I get the kind of, like, compulsive nature that Moneyball plays on a tiny bit. It's a good movie, but, like, give The Mexican a chance. Like, it's a weird film. It's got fun performances. Like, there is reason to put this on and remember it over rewatching the Ocean's films again.
Yeah. I would say if you want a movie from relatively early in Brad Pitt's career, I would take this over Seven. And I would actually take...
That's a big statement.
Listen, I'm not trying to, like, shit on Seven. I just feel like Seven really... I don't know. Seven is fucking heavy, and it's weighted down by a lot. And this is a movie that this is a completely different type of movie than Seven. I don't know. I think this is a really fun performance from Brad Pitt. I think this is a really fun performance from Julia Roberts. And this is a movie that I think really does have something for everybody in it. Like, this is a movie that has action-y, crime thrillery hijinks in it. And it's a movie that is a pretty engaging love story. Like, this really can be a 4-quadrant movie if you just go into it knowing that it's not going to 100% check any box and occupy any one genre.
Yeah, and that's, to me, the best movies around are complex like that.
Yes.
So, cool. All right, well, we have yet another. I'm actually getting surprised by the amount of films we've both decided to send back this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've forgotten how many movies we've said we're supposed to remember, so maybe something's wrong with our machine. We both wanted to remember Barnyard, right? You agreed with me that Barnyard should be remembered forever? No. Barnyard better than The Mexican.
We've got Simone. We've got 54.
Yeah.
We've got The Last Song.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Vampire in Brooklyn.
All right, yeah.
And we've got The Mexican.
You know what? Watch all of those movies and then put on The Mexican and have your face just melt by the huge jump in quality over all of those very qualified recommendations.
I hope no one can criticize us for being biased toward a specific type of film.
No.
I think that's a nice variety of films we've got there.
Yes. Good for us. Good for us having varied tastes. Yes. Golf.
That's me patting us on the back.
Yeah. That's what that is. It sounded more like you clapping your hands, but
no. That's my back.
Oh. Okay.
I as you know, maybe other people can't see me, but I podcast shirtless, so that was the bare skin on bare skin.
It's, you know what, look, it maybe it helps your process. It takes something out of me to be here with you doing that, but you know what, hey, go with what works.
All right, well, until next week when we wrap up The Mexican in our mini episode. For Truman Caps, I have been Landon Solano.
And for Landon Solano, I've been Truman Caps. Vaya con Dios, amigos.
Movie Memory Machine is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpodcast to keep the machine running. Theme song by Porky's Groove Machine. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. For more information on today's show, visit moviememorymachine.com.